Warning: this program may contain explicit language that may be considered offensive or inappropriate to children and some adults.
The following content is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to Talk It Out, where we talk it out. My name is Duryea Rashad, and I'm so happy to be here with you all this week. It's Thursday, as people from the South say, Thursday, not Thursday. And we are here to kick it off, have a good time. Just to remind you, if this is your first time here at Talk It Out is a place where people of opposing views can get together and have a healthy and productive dialogue in a respectful way. Keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Now, before we get into things, I want to remind you all to go ahead, head over to our YouTube and give us a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you're notified whenever we put new content on our channel, and there's always new content coming. If you would like to be a panelist, please email us at admin@wonellymedia.com. And while you're watching right now, let's go ahead and share. Make sure you share this on your Facebook page, if you're on Twitch, wherever you are. I don't know if you can share on Twitch. But yeah, just make sure you share so that we can build our Talk It Out family. So, now, without any further ado, I want to go ahead and start bringing in our panelists. First, let's start with our returning panelist. This first returning panelist is ever inquisitive, always insightful, Mr. Joe Jones. What's up, Joe?
What up?
Yep, I didn't know you were eating. That's funny.
I didn't know I was first. So that
Everybody hungry. You blame Rakita. She put you first on the list.
I know. How are you?
I'm great. I'm well. How are you? Keep eating. I'm gonna read your blurb.
No, wait. I thought we were doing. Duryea is a multi-talented host. He's been leading Talk It Out for a number of months
is
now.
Backwards. I'm supposed to do this for you
the whole time.
Get out of here.
Make sure everybody knows how great he is.
Thank you, buddy.
We just dress alike. Look how like we dressed.
A little bit. Mine's a little more vulgar, but so Joe Jones is a social media professional from UNC and Duke graduate, a father, a husband, and definitely not the leader of an underground terrorist organization. I fall for that every time.
Never once.
It was different this time. Well, that's
been a while, so you forgot.
I did. You always get me with that. All right. Next up is another Talk It Out panelist, and also a very, very large member of a big part of the what is it called? The Nelly Media family, who will be coming to you with Sip and Kiki, which is going to premiere either soon. It's going to be premiering in the next few weeks.
Does this mean I'm not a member of the family?
You are, but
me as a family.
Mo has a whole nother show that Mo does, that they do. So
Mo,
all right.
what is?
Listen, we got a whole show to do.
I just want to belong.
Mo and Joe. So let's bring Mo in. Mo,
please, no pictures. No pictures. No pictures.
I can't.
Hi.
Hello. How are
you
doing? We're good.
I'm doing all right. Yeah. Yesterday I was representing, the whole Nelly Media family. Was politically provoked. Shout out to Brittany. So, I'm doing all right. I shan't complain. And yes, and also, I do want to remind everyone, after you finish, giving your donations for Flirting with Destiny, which is coming soon, via Nelly Media, make sure whatever pennies, dollars, cents you got left over, head over to my Cash App at $Mo Smith Pro. That's MoeSmithP as in Paul RO. And that's for the people at home that are listening via podcast and can't see my wonderful, lovely, youthful baby face. All right. Praise the Lord, saints. Thank you.
Hallelujah.
What an
Yes,
entrance.
glory. Glory.
Next, coming to us from the Anything Show, we have John Francois, who's the host and producer of the Anything Show with John Francois, a comical weekly pop culture hour that can be heard on several community radio stations around the country and wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, and so forth. Each week, John and a co-host, Main Squeeze Mary, they dive into trending headlines, listener questions, viral videos, celebrity gossip, and they interview a variety of interesting talent. So please like and follow on Facebook.com/TheAnythingShow and Instagram @AnythingShowFrancois. Please welcome John Francois back to Talk It Out. What's up, buddy?
Hey man, how you doing? You know what? I'm actually like Joe here. I have my dinner prepared because
Rubbin.
It's everybody. Everybody eating
Came
today. Look.
Food. Tea.
Yeah,
And then we got somebody else backstage eating too. What's up, Brittany?
oh god, yeah, I just started cooking, so I made like some rice, carrot, and meatball concoction, and
Okay, healthy.
Ooh,
well, yeah, I'm
fancy.
fine because before this I was just eating fast food, and my doctor was telling me that I would get cancer if I kept eating the way I was eating. So I'm
Well,
trying
damn.
to get better.
That's bad.
Yeah, right. And
Did you
I'm
hear what Trump said? Don't listen to the doctors.
exactly.
Don't do that. All right.
Got my
So
headphones. But yeah,
let's.
thank you so much for having me on the show, and I'm gonna just sit and eat and have a good time, and I guess talk about criminal justice reform at some point.
At some point, right. Awesome. So next, coming to us from another wonderful show, The Collective Objective, is our good friend Justin Lawrence. What's up, Justin?
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to have these discussions
Hello.
tonight.
I'm
And
excited
hello,
to-
Brittany.
Ah, oh God. Oh
Don't
God.
lean into the mic. Your mic is awesome. You don't need to lean into it.
Okay,
It's really,
all right.
It picks up well. Justin
My second
is
time using it, so
It's really good.
Okay.
As soon as you start speaking, I was like, man, that quality. Justin is the co-host of The Collective Objective, a podcast that focuses on political and social issues in the world today. They also share the work of other content creators, and you can find The Collective Objective on Facebook at the www.facebook.com/The Collective Objective. You can find their social
Wait.
media on their Facebook page.
What's
Joe?
it about? I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to ask questions yet. My bad.
Look, like I said, ever inquisitive. You ask questions
I'm
later,
muting
or we
myself.
can do this after the show. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So next up, our next panelist returning to us after a pretty long hiatus. A single Libra mother of two beautiful daughters who's addicted to running and fitness. 2010 Georgia State University graduate with a BA in Spanish literature, and also a homeschooling mom who enjoys cooking, traveling, eating, and practicing self-care, who you can find on Instagram at SweetGeorgiaBrown92. Please welcome back to Talk It Out, Georgia.
Yeah.
What's up, Georgia?
I'm hanging in here.
How are you? I'm glad you're here.
I miss you. I do.
I miss you too. You know how
Thank
all
you.
the late night shows when they be drinking and stuff, that everybody show they drink, and this is like the eating hour this time. Everybody's eating, so I feel.
I'm trying
I
to
feel,
keep that shrimp over there and not try to
you
be
can-
all.
apparently
you know,
you can eat it because Joe ain't stopped. So I mean, you
Oh.
know I don't care. I don't care.
Oh no! Look, all right. Say
Be
no more.
yourself. Live your life. I can't eat because I have to talk a lot. But all right, our last returning panelist is a great friend of mine from college, one of the most zen human beings on the planet. Went to school to get better at acting. She runs a beer bar and has the best husband, son, and cat. They dream of opening their own theater/bar/restaurant one day, which I totally want to be a part of. Look, and if they don't let me be a part of it, I'm still in the idea, okay? Who you can find at SammyJoe913. Please welcome Samantha Z. What's up, Sam? I think you're muted.
Yeah, she's muted.
Sorry. Great entrance to the show.
Listen, you wouldn't be the first. You won't be the
Yeah,
last.
we'd call you like immediately as soon as we sign the lease. We're calling you. I mean,
Great.
Yeah, of course.
Because I want to do something there. That sounds like that's actually is great. Like I think people after this pandemic, they're gonna want like event stuff to do.
It's the dream. And on Mondays and Tuesdays, it's going to be a soup kitchen. You can come help do that too.
And I have experience in the restaurant industry. Yes. Okay. All right. So this
Take a day
last
off and go do that.
finalist that's joining us is I met them through my godfather. I was able to be part of like one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. It was a pandemic impromptu like renewing of vows, and it was so beautiful, it was so romantic. This is Caprina Wiggins. Hey Caprina,
Hey guys, hello.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm
I'm
wonderful.
good.
So Caprina Wiggins works for the state of North Carolina as a correctional officer and holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, human services, and rehabilitation. She's been married to her wife for almost 11 years and is a mother of 4. Now, it's crazy because I feel like we have such a great panel here for this conversation tonight. And I'm really excited to hear your insight onto this topic as well. So, welcome to Talk It Out. All right. So let's get started with some current events. But of course, as always, before we get into our current events, we're going to pause for about a 60-second ad break. That was Pretty in Pink bundles. You can find them at prettyinpinkbundles.com. They got Brazilians, Indians, bundles, lace fronts, everything you need, all your beauty needs. And remember, the best revenge, great hair is the best revenge, right? That's the slogan. I like that slogan. And the other ad was for Singing in the Rain from the Springer Opera House, which opens tonight. It's going to kick off their summer outdoor theater festival called Theater Under the Stars. It's awesome. Please go check that out. If you're in Columbus or around Columbus, it's only like an hour away, hour to 30 minutes away from Atlanta. It's going to be excellent. If you've never experienced outdoor theater, it's an awesome thing. And I think this show is perfect to kick off the event. All right. So we've had a tough week. I was going to start on something light, but I'm not going to start on something light. Okay. I want to talk about what happened yesterday. So if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock or if you've just decided to be like oblivious to the news. Yesterday, a man who I'm not going to say his name, but a man took it upon himself to go out, buy a weapon, which he got in about an hour's time, and then proceed to what I would describe as hunt down or track down Asian women who he attributed, as far as he concerns, to sex, and shot as many of them as he could. And when he was done, he was on the way to Florida to continue doing that. And the crazy part about it was, apparently his parents turned him in. When he was turned in, he said that this had nothing to do with race. And he said that it had everything to do with sexual desires, and he wanted to eliminate his sexual desires. I was actually trying to explain to somebody today, saying that he didn't kill these women because he hated Asian women, right? Because I think that's what people confuse. They don't understand. They want to say, like, how is this racist if he, saw these women as, sexually attractive. He doesn't hate Asian women, clearly. The fact that he attributes sex solely to Asian women and sees them solely as a temptation negatively to be eradicated, that's a racial incentive. No matter how you spin it, you don't have to be and he used that incentive. The fact that people were like, oh, these are just establishments that he frequented, and that's why he chose these targets. They were establishments that he frequented because he fetishized Asian women, which is racist. So that conversation has been going on a lot. The media, as normal, when a white man does a mass shooting, is playing this out to be like, oh, the sheriff of the county where he was arrested in described him as someone who had met the end of their rope and had a really bad day. And it's interesting to me watching the news, how they're spinning this when you look at George Floyd, because, as soon as George Floyd was murdered, they brought up his criminal past, even though he was out of trouble at the time. They brought up the fact that he was high. They brought up all these things. But they did their best to not really show much about his killers, right? But now you see the flip side of that. Now you see where everybody is, okay, essentially putting all the focus on the killer and all the reasons that he did what he did, to humanize him, to make it seem like, you get it, guys, he just got the end of his rope. We're not talking about the 8 families that were destroyed yesterday, and there were 9 victims. One of them just survived. People don't talk about it. There were 9 people whose lives are affected by this. One of them just so happened to survive. So I think that I want to have this conversation. We could talk about Georgia gun laws. We could talk about any aspect of this whole story that y'all want to talk about. I want to open it up to us, and I also want to open it up to the audience. And I want to know what y'all think. Do y'all think it was racially motivated? How could you not? Or not? You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to be rude. I might disagree, but I'm not going to be rude. So who would like to start the conversation off?
You know
Mo.
I do. Yeah, it pissed me off. I think the worst of it was
We can go to John after Mo.
Yeah. The police captain afterwards, during the press conference, it's been exposed that he's actually also racist towards Asians. Oh, big surprise. He actually had Facebook posts where it says COVID-19 brought to you by China with a CHYNA. So clearly this narrative has been put in place because he empathizes with this man that is clearly an incel. But just because you're an incel doesn't mean you can't be racist.
What is an incel?
Let's be clear on that. This is a subset of men that are voluntarily celibate, meaning they can't get any you know what. So since they don't know how to get it other than pay for it, they get all up in their brains and think they should have it and get upset that women don't give it to them. Which that's not how the world works, honey. You're gonna have to work for what you get. So, but I digress on that. It's a whole different tangent. But it just really, just like you were saying, Duryea, it was another example of how the narrative coming from the police has been fed to the media, and the media has been pushing that this isn't a hate crime, which in fact it damn sure is. 6 of them victims were Asian women. 4 of them were of Korean descent. There is no way in the world that you can't tell me that between Cherokee County and Atlanta, that's about an hour drive. So you couldn't find any other strip clubs that have, more other nationalities or other massage spas that are lined up that have Caucasian massagers. So, come on.
And people want to make it out to seem like they're like, these are the places that he frequented. Let's be like, this is my issue. These are the places that he frequented, but he was on his way to Florida.
Yeah,
he was on his way to a whole nother state. So
he was.
Explain that.
They were saying that it was something to do with some porn that was created in Florida that he was going to bust up. That's what he was on his way to do.
For his addiction?
For his addiction. For his sex addiction. And I think the worst of it is that there's real life people that are addicted to sex.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that he's not addicted to sex. Because he's actually
I'm not saying it either.
I'm not really addicted to sex. I feel like that's a big jump.
Yes, people can be addicted to sex.
But it's yes.
Hard to believe, but it does happen.
People are addicted to sex, or we have a sex negative culture.
We do. But the point of it is that though there are real life sex people that have sex addiction that are not murderers. So I don't want this to be put into a category where, you have sex addiction. Does that mean you're going to murder somebody too? I mean, why add an extra stigma when it's not even necessary?
I don't. What I want to know is
let John go, because John was supposed to go after Mo, and then you can go, Joe.
Are you muted?
You're muted, John.
Am I not muted now?
Perfect.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, perfect. So this story, in a weird way, kind of hit close to home for me because back when I was single and more, going through mental health stuff, I used to also frequent Asian massage parlors for those kind of things. So I looked at this guy and I said to myself, wow, okay, so he claims that he has this sexual addiction, and that's his reasoning for killing all these Asian women. Obviously, it's not these Asian women's fault that he has this sex addiction. This is something that he brought upon himself. So I couldn't help but think of this story as like, sort of like a therapy lesson, because what I did when I was not comfortable, doing those experiences back in the day, I made a choice. I made a change. I decided to just get into the dating field. Those Asian experiences was mostly like a lack of confidence issue on my part. So I decided, all right, let me get uncomfortable and let me go into the dating field and let me see what happens. And that eventually resulted in a relationship. So I guess the fact that I was looking at this guy, this shooter, from a sympathetic sort of therapeutic standpoint, like, wow, this is a guy that seriously, needs help, needs counseling. Maybe it reflects what you're saying, Duryea, about the reflection of these white shooters in the media, how we tend to look at them like, oh, well, if you look at their mental health history, like, yeah, I mean, you can't blame them for doing what they did. Whereas, like you said, with George Floyd, we're just looking at him as, a guy with a criminal past. And maybe that's why he deserved to be, killed by that police officer. So, yeah, it's very interesting. And I really didn't think of it from the standpoint, as you said, Duryea, from the fact that because he's associating, the shooter, he's associating sex with Asian women, that in itself is racist. So, I mean, we'll see what happens from here on out. But yeah, I think between this and, of course, in the association with China and COVID, it's definitely dark times for the Asian American community. Those are my thoughts on that.
Before we go to Joe, we had some technical issues before, but we had a guest who was backstage, and they returned, another returning guest. Lawyer and entrepreneur, maven, jack of all trades, low key. Let's welcome Margie back to the panel.
Hey. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you. I apologize.
It's okay.
Yes.
You gotta do what you do. Okay, so Joe, you wanted to go. I will give you a big intro, but we already, But Joe, you were next.
I was gonna say I don't know why just shooting women wasn't enough. Like I feel like we're doing a lot of work to make it about his hatred specifically of Asian women and fetishizing women. But again, this is just a man projecting his self-hatred onto women generally. So I think we can make it that, right? But I think there's work already available to us in the fact that, like, what we're looking at is misogyny straight up. And then we're questioning whether or not it becomes a hate crime and that's enough and that does that work. But at the same time, we're seeing, I think that's the mental health issues we see, right? Like we can talk about whether or not it's sex addiction that can be projected onto women that happen to be Asian. But at the end of the day, like this is a man, again, holding women accountable for his desires rather than a man taking ownership of his own sexual desires and being responsible for his own behaviors.
Here's the thing I'll object to that for, because people don't realize that two things can be true at once. This could totally be misogyny and racism. So
I'm down for that.
I agree with what you're saying. Like it's a multitude of things. It's misogyny, it's racism, it's also a culture that looks at sex workers as subhuman. It's a lot of different things at play. I think the reason people are so upset about the racist angle is because as soon as he said out of his mouth, oh, it had nothing to do with race, the authorities were like, okay,
right,
this man just murdered 8 people, and it's just okay. Like you're taking his word just because he said it. What, like, if I'm facing a hate crime in Georgia, I'm gonna say it wasn't race too. What do you mean? I'm in Georgia. It's a hate crime, Margie.
And Duryea, when you were given all those different aspects that are at play, what about the religious angle? I'm not sure if that was brought up yet, because wasn't he like the son of, like, I'm not gonna say Baptist ministers, but I mean, didn't his family run a church or something? It seems like I had read that he had actually gone to sex therapy a number of times. So whatever the angle is with the church, and I hope that I'm correct in quoting it, I think it harkens back to the church is such a place where there is such perfection. And when there's not perfection, and when you continue to fall short of what the standard is that people give you, then, you lash out. So it's not your fault that you can't control your sexual desire. It's that woman's fault for looking so sexually appealing. And if the only way that I can, stay away from her is to kill her, I'm going to do that. So, maybe I want to explore the religious angle aspect of it as well.
I agree, because I'm gonna go to Caprina. I'm gonna let my little comment, and then Caprina, and then Justin. I agree because I was just talking to someone the other day about a lot of religions that Christianity or let's say and Western culture deem demonic have to do with women being equally powerful to a male, right? So. Of course, and it is also like, just look at the origin story of Adam and Eve. Everyone, the blame always falls on her. She is the one who was tempted, weak, this, that, and the third. So it has to do with all of these things, and I think it's really important that we don't try to attribute it to one thing, because this was not a one problem issue at all. Caprina?
Well, I mean, I know I grew up in the church. I've gone to church. And one of the viewers' comments was, society portrays sex as a negative aspect. No one is supposed to be comfortable with their sexuality. And then if you grow up in the culture in a household where he supposedly grew up in a church-filled household, I'm sure he had to suppress his sexual desires. So, I mean, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of things at play, but the bigger question is for the parlors that he did visit. How many times did he actually visit there as a customer before he decided to say, oh, well, today I shouldn't be there. Right. Today is not a good day. Let me kill these people today. After I've been there and gratified myself several times at that particular parlor, or any parlor in particular. But to me, they're excuses. They're just all excuses for being able to say, well, you know what? I have a sexual addiction. Let me kill all the Asian women who have sexually gratified me because now I'm tempted.
A big part for me, I really like what you said there. I think it's a lot of this situation. There's obviously a lot of deep problems wrapped into one with this guy. Repressed sexual addiction, desires, whatever the hell. Obviously mentally ill because he murdered 8 people. Like 2 years ago, I walked into a gun range for fun with a girlfriend, and it just, I couldn't stop shaking because I was able to just like walk up to the counter. They gave me a gun, and the second I got in there surrounded by people shooting guns, they're like, oh, have you shot a gun before? And I was like, nope. And with our noise canceling headphones on, he's like, oh yeah, so you're just gonna like, and it was like no big deal. And like, of course, in my head, I'm thinking, I could kill all these people right now, So just the accessibility for me to get a gun that day, having never held one in my entire life, and I'm in Georgia, by the way. But like that to me, I'm like, there's a lot to work on in our culture, and that's real deep. But I feel like it starts there, and then we go back. To the couple thousand years of religion that's like screwing everybody up.
Justin.
See, here's where
Justin and then Mo.
So I wanted to read something, but first I did want to. Everybody had like really good points. I think that this is a cultural problem that we have. That the fact that the captain of the police force came out and he was making excuses for this guy, but right. I wanted to read something that one of my friends had posted in one of the groups, and he's an Asian American. So his name's Matthew Sampson, and he said, I really need to express my sincere displeasure about Captain J. Baker, who shared a Facebook post for t-shirts that read COVID-19 imported virus from China, stating that Robert Aaron Long was just having a really bad day. We all heard this, and it was independently upset over this assessment. Coupled with the facts that Long was peacefully apprehended, who was armed at the time. Racism was scarred all over this, that stretched further than just the shooter Long. I didn't want to believe that Trump's influence would make Asian hatred be so obvious in this, but it appears by all contextual evidence that it has. Baker's words made him a personal defender of the shooter, not the victims. I haven't seen anyone that I know in the police force openly condemn Baker either. Their silence is deafening, and when you don't openly separate yourself from this, are you still that good apple? It's getting scary out there for Asians in a time when we should be past this. It's already scary for blacks in a time when we should already be past this. It's not where I want to be, and until Trumpism is fully repudiated, I fear that the race relations will be broken in the U.S. until racism is called out. Repudiated, I can't say it, and canceled. But canceled doesn't mean it won't exist. But we have become complacent during Obama's time. I'll admit very loudly that I am included in that complacency. Racism almost felt like it wasn't really concerning when we had finally elected a black person for the presidency. At least that's what it felt like in the bubble I was in. This is a lesson that we all need to remember, that when it appears that we've evolved, we need to remember that it can't always come back, especially in a republic that has been tailored to give a minority a majority power. So I thought it was really nicely written, and then the gun laws in Georgia are ridiculous. That's my last point. You can walk in that day, walk out. It needs to be changed. I'm not necessarily anti-gun, but you shouldn't be able to just walk in, say, hey, I want to get this gun, and just walk out within an hour. So I at least have the 3-day waiting period.
Okay. I'm gonna go to you, Mo. I just also want to, and I see you too, John. And I think it's really important that people are starting having these conversations, because people view racism as this one singular thing. It's like men in white hoods. That's racism to them, and that's it. And it's so much deeper than that, and it's so much more. It's insidious because it hides itself in things like that, like fetishization, like subconscious bias, like these small things that we don't think about, like the fact that he felt it was okay to be violent towards people as a solution to his problem is the problem. And that has to do also with mental illness, but it also has to just do with the world he grew up in, to project his issues instead of to accept. Is Mo, and then John, and then Joe, and then wait, Georgia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, really. So I was reading this whole time.
I'm in Georgia and then Mo, because Georgia hasn't spoken.
Can you hear me? Does it work? Yeah. My microphone work? Okay, good.
You're good.
So I was reading about this while everybody was talking, and I looked up exactly what what Christopher A. Wray of the FBI director said. While the motive still remains under investigation at the time, it does not appear that the motive was racially motivated. But I really would defer to the state and local investigation on that for now. Now, analyzing this as a literature major, there's definitely politics involved, because you can literally say the exact same thing without it making it seem like, oh, it appears. That seems like that gives your personal opinion. Oh, it appears. Because if it appears, you don't have any evidence. You haven't done any you don't know whether or not it was or not. So you could have said, while the motive remains still under investigation at this moment, we are unsure. So if you say that we are unsure, of course it takes some credibility, because like when I work for Amazon, you could not say a negative word, meaning I don't know where your order is, or I'm not sure, but you will always say, well, you know what? Let me get you to the correct department to make sure that can be handled properly and efficiently. Okay, so that's just what irritates me about this, is the way he said it. There's definitely a lot more to this, and to me, it really makes me think that it could possibly be racially motivated. I don't know. It just shocked me. I'm just sitting here just reading it over and over again. I'm just like, it just seems like he just said it in such a nonchalant manner. Oh, it appears.
Because when they say it appears, it gives them leeway for the media to be like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't like, but like you said, it's strictly an opinion-based statement.
Instead of saying we are unsure, and also
right.
I understand the politics in that, because this is not state nor local. It's a state or local investigation. The FBI don't want to be involved with this, but I would really defer to the state
because it's already made national news.
They are like, you know what? Okay, whatever. It appears now, but guess what? You can just go talk to them over there and see what they say.
Mo?
Like you don't get two shits.
Well, I mean, anything at a federal level is always going to be political. So, I mean, that's unfortunately the sad reality of it.
Say that.
So, and not to mention, we have a Democratic president, and as well as a Democratic Congress. But unfortunately, a lot of those establishment Democrats, they're not as left leaning when it comes to social issues, especially dealing with racism. So I can't really say that I'm surprised by that the callousness of that statement. Um, but going back to the point about gun control, first, I don't think gun control would have made that big of a deal. And Daria, you know as well as I do, I really have an anti-gun control.
I did not know that before right now.
I do. We've had shows about gun control, and I'm like, yeah, that really wouldn't have prevented this situation. And in this situation, I don't really think that having a 3-day waiting period would have prevented him to eventually saying, okay, well, today's going to be the day I'm going to shoot up everybody.
He would have just waited 3 more days.
He just would have made it 3 more days. And furthermore, the main reason why I don't like when it comes to legislation like gun control is that when you have those type of laws, unfortunately, those type of laws, first of all, it was created in racism because Ronald Reagan was the first one that had the gun control legislation when they were trying to control the Black Panther Party when they stormed well, I shouldn't say storm, when they protested the Capitol building in Sacramento with their rifles. So after that, Ronald Reagan was like, "Oh, we need to put some legislation on the books to make sure those folks don't come back here with guns." And by the way, the NRA actually was in favorable of that bill at that time. So fast forward, here we are today. They're very anti-gun control due to the fact that it doesn't help their business initiative, and furthermore, they know that people are crazy. He could have just as easily blew up those buildings as opposed to having a gun. It just depends on how long he wanted to put that time into it.
But here's the thing, though, Mo. Like, if gun laws work stricter, then let's even though I don't even want to play devil's advocate with this one, let's play devil's advocate and say that he was just having a bad day. Or let's just say let's not say it was a bad day. Let's say this decision was a spur of the moment decision. When you then have to wait 3 days to get that gun, do you don't think that changes it at all?
No, because he could have easily just got a pocket knife and stabbed those women.
But he could have done a lot less damage with a pocket knife than with a gun.
Oh, what you talking about?
Well, going out to get the gun, is a process. So that in itself is premeditated because you're going to do it anyway. Right. So you're going out there, you're going to take a process of going to get the gun. You already have in your mind what you're going to do. You waited in line. You checked out your gun. You picked which one you want. And then once you got it, you left. And then you went to whichever establishment and started your shooting spree. So This is something he knew he was going to do that day. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing.
Y'all have never been like, I was going to do this thing, but 3 days later, you're like, I don't have the courage to do it again. Like, you've never done that?
That absolutely does happen.
And I think you know how hard it is to stab somebody to death? It is a very different.
Well, that's a very
we laughing, but that's true.
That's a very personal. Stabbing somebody to death is a very personal crime.
It's hard.
It is, and honestly, but one thing you're taking out of it is it's easier to stab someone when you got that adrenaline flowing in you.
But that's my thing about it. Like, I think if you change the fact that he had a gun that quickly, it would have changed. I'm not saying that he wouldn't have still gone out and done harm.
He would have gone to more and more and more and more places until he can just finish what he needed to do.
And I guess,
however, number one thing that happens when people stab each other.
Wait. Margie's been trying to hop in. So after Joe.
And then you cut your hand.
Go ahead.
I'm telling you.
Shut up, Joe.
I'm not joking.
Margie.
If we flip the situation, the guns are hard to get. People think, oh, I'm just going to go stab. They think they're going to default to this next set of things they'll do. But those things are a lot harder than we realize to do. The number one things that happen when people start stabbing each other is that people start bleeding, the knife gets slippery, and they cut their own hands. It's why we have some people get caught on DNA. You look like your hand will be torn up. Like, it's so much easier to shoot someone to death than it is for you to be
Okay,
in a
well-
situation where you have a knife.
So wait,
And I
Margie,
guess-
Margie, and then I want to actually respond to some of these comments. Go ahead, Margie.
And I'm just confused because I don't know what the gun connection is, whether he just went and got a gun and 3 days later this happened. From what I read,
No, he got the gun that day.
You gotta go.
Oh,
An
he
hour
got the
before
gun
he-
that day.
Yes.
Thank
Real
you.
fast.
Because I know
That's
I
what
had just read that they had said he loved guns and loved the Lord, and I guess loved
That's the
that,
problem
you
right
know.
there. That tells it
Not
all
gun
right
and
there.
the Lord.
All
Not
right.
gun and the Lord in the same sentence.
So here's my thing. So some of these
That's like
comments,
saying, God forgive me, and then boom, you're dead.
right?
But think about it.
Rakia.
But wait. But think
Well,
about it.
really-
People who are advocates for guns say, if this is one of my God-given rights, the right to bear arms, the right to defend
protect
myself, the right
right.
to protect my property. So I believe, yes, they believe that you can love the Lord and love guns at the same time. They don't believe that you can love the Lord, love guns, and love the sin within you, because I think he was probably so torn up by the standard that he just failed and failed over and over again, and that maybe he saw this is about race. He didn't go out and kill 5 black women. He went out and killed 5 Asian women. So yes, it is 6. I'm sorry. It is absolutely about race, not even this appearance. That's just a buzzword to satisfy the masses so that we think, okay, well, at least they're thinking along those lines. No, bruh, this was about race because these are the women that he targeted.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to understand this. Like, it is crazy how white people and people in general, but specifically white people, are afraid of being labeled a racist, but not afraid of doing racist shit. Like going out and killing 6 Asian women, that is fine. Like, as long as we don't call him a racist, let's do anything in our power not to call him a racist.
My favorite phrase is I voted for Obama. And
Girl,
like, I
right.
hate people say that. And
My best
Whoopsie
friend is
daisy.
black.
Really quick, there was
My
a comment,
wife is
Rakia.
black.
There was a comment from the Facebook, the YouTube user 1 to 100 or something like that. Can you put that back on the screen? And then after that, the comment by Latanya, and I kind of. So bottom line, it was domestic terrorism. Why aren't they calling it that? And even if he could, even whether you can call it hate crime or not, bottom line is this was domestic terrorism. Religion was an aspect of it. If this was a Muslim person doing this for religious reasons, he would have immediately been called a terrorist. And even if he is convicted, he won't get the death penalty and he'll be protected in prison by white supremacists. And this is so sad because it's true.
Oh,
So-
100% it's true. I work at a prison. It's 100% true.
So, and then the other comment was from Latanya, the one about the guns. I forget what it said. It says something about are we gonna talk about gun control and how it's not gonna stop black market gun sales, right? So essentially, yes. So are we believing that gun control will stop black market gun sales? No.
Yes.
Not at all.
Wait,
No.
hold on. Wait,
No.
why?
Not at all.
It's not even a real problem.
Gun control,
Wow.
gun control laws are supposed to. The whole idea between gun control laws is we're not trying to get rid of guns. We're trying to make it to where someone who has a clear apparently he's got a pattern of mental illness and all this other stuff like that can't just say, you know what, I want to go get this gun and in an hour go kill these people. That's what gun control is about. Illegal guns,
What is
like that's like.
problem?
Of
Well, I
course,
think
gun control
What
laws.
about black market murders? What about
Okay, but
black
I
market
think-
murders?
No.
But here's the thing.
Like,
but here's
why
the
would
thing.
You make laws for different reasons. You make
Okay,
laws.
but Joe,
How would a gun
I
law
think about-
affect the sale of a black market gun?
It's
Okay,
not.
okay. I think the point is this, because for example, the state of Illinois has some of the toughest gun laws in the country. However, the city of Chicago has some of the highest gun violence rates within the country. So it precedes the point that people make is that, well, they have those laws on the books and it's not really helping the violence. Now, with me, personally, those two things don't really correlate anyway, because the whole point of the increase within violent crime, which is also happening in Atlanta, is really correlated to the economy. Unemployment is up in those areas. So in places where you have a higher level of unemployment, you have a higher level of gun violence, because most people that, contrary to popular belief, there's the welfare queen is really not the place to be. People like to work. They want to go to work. So if they lost their job, they're going to go get a, what they call no skill position, like at a McDonald's or a grocery store or whatever. Unfortunately, teenagers don't have that access to those jobs anymore, and we're not pouring money into after school or youth outreach programs. So those kids don't have anything to do except, guess what? Get into trouble. So I digress. Go ahead. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, it's cool. Does anyone have any more comments about that? Because we have some other stuff on current events.
I have one question.
Question?
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Which is, how do we distinguish between the type of care that police department did to try to make him look innocent or like him to take care of him? How do we distinguish between that and what we do want in terms of positive police reform?
So I already know where you're going with this. I want it. We've talked to this. So Joe and I have talked about this on a previous panel. It was when we talked about QAnon dude getting organic food in jail. He's like, should we be mad? He was like, should we be mad that he's getting organic food, or should we be mad that everyone else isn't getting organic food? Now, here's my thing. Because Joe doesn't believe that jail should be like, I've been to jail, okay? So I'm a personal, like, I 100% agree that the criminal justice system is not based on rehabilitation, because of the 13th Amendment and the provision left in the 13th Amendment to make slavery still legal today, and the fact that most people in jail are black men. It is not set up to rehabilitate us. It is absolutely set up to punish us. But I think part of that rehabilitation does need to be consequences. There do need to be, like, you can't go to prison. You can't go to prison and expect a silver, like, no, you can't get no organic food. You can get kosher food in prison. If it's something that's gonna cause you to, like, die, or that's religiously, but you're talking about just a standard of that's a privilege. Organic food is a privilege. Like it is. About,
yeah.
Well, so even in the sense of so let's bring it back to here. Let's bring it back to here. Yeah. So you're saying, should we the care that he was given while being brought in, should that care be extended to everyone else? Yes, I get what you're saying, but at the end, it's essentially what we're asking as a people is keep that same energy. When we talk about police reform, absolutely. If you're going to consider this white man's mental state when you're handling him while he's got a gun and all this stuff, yet a few days ago, a baby got shot in the head by police. Yes, a 1-year-old is in the hospital right now because the police opened fire into the car and it hit, I think, it hit the mother and the child. Wow. So this is what I'm talking about. There's videos of,
and they didn't even apologize.
I saw a video of this black couple getting arrested in front of their children. This woman had to hand her children off to strangers because they were going to arrest her, right? And then they're literally kicking this man, trying to make him spread his legs. And I'm not talking about just like a little tap, spread your legs. Like literally, he cocked his leg back and kicked this dude's legs open. And they got a $10 million settlement, but they feel comfortable doing that. So I do agree that the same energy and care that was brought to him should be extended to anyone they're bringing in if they feel like mental health is an issue. But it's deeper than that, too. It goes also to the culture of these people. They look at these white boys and they see themselves. They see that thing that they're supposed to save. They don't see that when they look at us. So it's deeper than just police reform. It's also a cultural thing. Margie?
And yeah, on that same point, and I mean, I live in Charleston, which is where Dylan Roof shot up Mother Emanuel Church. Didn't they take him to Burger King? After they got him, they took him to Burger King, okay?
Sure did, and he was very comfortable.
And he felt protected. The vest and everything.
He had no worries. If you watched him on the news, I'm sorry, Mo, but if you watched him on the news, that little kid had no worries at all. He wasn't fazed at all that he was about to go to jail because they took care of him. They took care of him and made him feel very, very comfortable after he killed all those people.
I was watching this video the other day, and I'm going to go to you, Mo, and then after Mo, we're going to move to another topic. I was watching this video the other day about all these people in jail and whatever. It was a 16-year-old dude who had committed a murder or whatever, and they were talking about the nature of these crimes are so heinous, he must be held as an adult, yada, 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 yada. Yet the news is calling this 21-year-old man who just killed 8 people a kid.
Of course they are.
So I just think it's interesting. Mo, and then we'll move to another topic.
Right, because in reality, the way we are treated as African Americans in this country is that either we're superhuman or we're subhuman. We have to adhere to a superhuman standard, and we are treated in a subhuman way.
Say that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that is our conversation about that. This very well may be a topic. I'm thinking about doing a topic about this, and I'm sure some of these issues will cross-link with our topic next week, which is racial stereotypes. But I kind of want to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted. Let's talk about some celebrity issues that I thought were very important. So I don't know which one I should talk for. I'm gonna talk about Kirk Franklin. So this week, this was so funny to me. This was so funny to me.
Awesome.
So I woke up to somebody. I woke up to this post that said, "No, we are not canceling Kirk Franklin." And immediately, no offense to anybody who's religious out there, but I was like, oh my God, like Kirk Franklin, a church person, that story, you generally know where's that going to lead. And I was like, not Kirk Franklin. Like, he's a staple in our, I was like, not Kirk. And then when I found out what happened, I was like, ain't nobody gonna cancel him. Because in the black community, like there's two issues here. There is part of it that I do agree with, that about black parents and the way that they talk to their children. And how it's very different from how a lot of other people talk to their children. However, so Kirk Franklin and his son were in an argument on the phone. And Kirk Franklin kirked and went off on him. Called him a bitch. Called him a BAN. Told him like you don't test me, motherfucker. I'll put my foot in your ass. And he did it with that Kirk Franklin, you know what I'm saying? So you know how you do this. He did it with that too. I said, oh, you better sermon while you let him know. And then he told don't you ever mess with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And then hung up on the boy. So the man is like, he's my age. Apparently he recorded the conversation and leaked it.
He yelled at him for leaking the call?
No,
the son leaked.
The son leaked the call after. Apparently, what happened was Kirk Franklin said earlier in the conversation they were on the phone with the therapist because they have family issues. And then after the therapist thing, it broke down, and then he recorded the conversation and put it out. Now, I feel like this. That would be a great topic. I feel like this. As a parent, I get it. You do what you got to do, but sometimes you curse out your kids or whatever. And granted, he is 33. He is 33.
That's a grown man.
That's a grown man.
Whoa.
So this wait. Well, listen. I said there's two issues. I said there's two issues here. Okay. I do think that should that be normal? No. But I think it is very clear that they have a toxic relationship, the two of them, right? Now, I'm not saying it's okay what he did. I don't think that his son should have made that a public conversation.
Wait. What did his son do right now?
His son recorded you're saying what did his son do in the conversation? We don't know.
Here's what you told me happened. You said they went to a therapist. It broke down. His dad called him and cussed him out, and he recorded and put it on. No.
While they were on the phone, something happened with the therapist. The conversation broke down. The therapist was no longer there, and the dude said something to his dad, and then we only got the clip of the conversation that the son wanted us to see, which was just Kirk Franklin.
His son might have called him a BAN.
We don't know. We don't know. But the point was, he was trying to make it out.
Figure out why it even mattered. You don't know. I remember my brothers they in their 50s and their 60s. Okay, and I'm the baby at 33. Okay, I ain't never heard my daddy cuss until my brother acted a stupid ass fool. My brother was in his early 60s at the time, and my daddy was. Well, no, he was in his late 50s. My dad was in his 70s. And he said, don't you have me get out the car and whoop your motherfucking ass. I don't give a damn how old I am. I will come out here. You will not disrespect me.
That part.
And this is a really important conversation about how, like, I do think conscious parenting, like what Ricky said in the comments, is a very important conversation to have. However, sometimes I feel like but I feel like sometimes you gotta lay the law down. I think sometimes because, let me tell you something about people. Not everybody, and I stand by this because I had a conversation with a friend of mine who doesn't like whippings, right? And I tell them about me and my brother, right? With my brother,
whippings.
please. Corey was like, please whoop me.
Whatever.
Corey wanted to get a spanking because Corey was like, as soon as that spanking over with, I'm back to living my life.
Okay,
take
do
that
that
little,
back to do.
Me, mama, no, mama.
That was me.
No, I'm doing whatever I can do. Like mama said at the grocery store, when you get home, you get your ass whooped. No, mama. The rest of the time I was good, right? I still got whooped, but Corey, he didn't like having his privilege taken away, right? No play, you can't go like. So I think every person is different, and sometimes you have to address that individual as an individual, and you have to know what's going to work for that individual.
Can we take parenting out of this?
But violence
though?
is a strategy.
Would
No,
you?
we can't take parenting out.
Yes,
He's-
no.
he's
Take
just- he's just
parents.
kid.
Take. First, I'm a parent, so
Georgia.
hold on. Take parenting out of it
Parents
for
who?
1 second. 1 second. Okay. We're both talking about Kirk Franklin's son is a grown ass man. That 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure he said something extremely disrespectful to his father. Now, if that wasn't his son and someone said something disrespectful to you off the flip, ain't you gonna cuss their ass out anyway? That's a
That is not an
grown
excuse.
person.
That is not an excuse.
Oh well,
That
but
is
it's
not
an
an
issue because it's his son. But if it was some stranger he didn't know or a friend he didn't like, it wouldn't be an issue.
Georgia, I will agree with you that if I'm walking down the street and somebody called me a BAN, I'm gonna give them a chance to see what a BAN looks like. But I do not believe that is me at my best. What I'm saying is, in a scenario where I do include parenting, there is room for me to do my best to be at my best. And if this toxic relationship exists, 99% of times out of 10, that's not out of 100, because 99% out of 100, that has been taught and put into the child from the parent.
But would we
so
be having?
I'm not going to excuse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
You can have
Let's go around the.
parent.
Let's go around the circle a little bit because we got a lot of parents in the circle, and I want to hear from you too, Sam, with y'all Zen parenting ass.
Would we be having this conversation if it wasn't Kirk Franklin? Because
Absolutely.
It depends on who it was.
No, we
No,
would
we
not be
wouldn't.
having
It's
this conversation
a religious thing.
if
I
it
was
was
never
any
T.I.
Joe
I
Schmo
told
on the
T.I.
street. We would not be having this conversation.
I'm pretty sure it was the pastor of that little Baptist church on the corner, that Baptist church on the corner that's been sitting there for about young goddamn knows how many years. Well, no one gives two shits if that pastor because he would not be on TV. But
Not at all.
not his son.
We would-
It's
Not
made
at
because
all.
of Kirk Franklin.
They would be gossiping about it. Let's keep it real. They'd be like, "Girl, you heard about
But
what
within the
happened?"
church walls, though.
Yeah,
they
because
within the church walls.
Right, I get it, but I think I think there's a little issue of nuance that people are not recognizing. Is that number one, they have a toxic relationship due to the fact that Kurt Franklin, he remarried, he moved on, so he's the son from the first wife. Number two,
Ooh, Kirk.
yeah, right. So
Listen.
number two, in the African American community, there's a lot of scrutiny when it comes to the line of discipline versus abuse, and people fail to realize is that we're descendants of people that were enslaved, and the whole phrase whippings that comes from master whipping or the overseer whipping slaves. So if and we do have something that's called post-traumatic slave dysphoria, where if I want to make sure that master or overseer, aka the police, don't take my child out, I'm gonna have to use throw my own hands on this child in order to keep them in line, because unfortunately they don't have the level of
Freedom.
grace that they're. Well, no, I say grace because
Okay.
people make mistakes, but there's grace involved. But they don't have the same level of grace that they would have if they were of a color of privilege.
Right.
And that's hence what we were talking about with the previous subject was that particular Caucasian that decided to shoot up 6 Asian women, and then all of a sudden, he was having a bad day. Let that have been an African American male, he probably wouldn't even made it to the to jail. First of all, he probably would have got shot up.
So let's go Margie, and then John, and then Sam.
And I want to speak from the perspective. I'm 52 years old, so I believe I'm probably old enough to be everyone's mama on that panel. My oldest son is 33.
Not me.
Okay. And I'm
me,
speaking from the person who got cussed out as a child. I cannot tell you how many times I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. And how many times my mother and grandmother threatened to absolutely kill me for the slightest of offenses. So, and I agree with what you say, Mo, that it was the overkill to keep us in line.
Mhm.
Because if you are so afraid and paralyzed with fear about, what I'm going to do to you, that's going to carry over when you are interacting in the general public. That's going to be the thing to make you in line. Because what's the first thing you're going to say? Oh my God, my mama going to kill me if I do this. And we believe
You ain't saying but a word.
So from that perspective, I was the person, and maybe Kirk Franklin, he was raised by his grandmama. Maybe that's what his grandmother instilled in him.
Of
Now,
course.
having children the same age as Kirk Franklin's son, I was certainly careful that I didn't want to repeat what in some ways I thought was mistakes in the way my mother and my grandmother raised me. So, trust me, my children have gotten the cussing out, and they have gotten the, if you ever do that again, which is what Kirk Franklin did, they have gotten that in the most extreme situations. But with regard to the situation with Kirk, and I was all for Kirk Franklin when I first heard about what happened. But the thing that bothered me, Madison, please come get Dewey for a minute, is the fact that, he was on Tamron Hall today. And the little bit about what I saw, she could say, was he was just talking about his son so much, and it was so degrading. Well, in therapy since he's just 12 years old. And, he's always had these anger issues and very aggressive. And he's just gotten out of hand, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, dude, I gave you a pass when you cursed him out because you're Kirk Franklin. Now you're talking trash about him. He's not there to defend himself. Let this thing die quietly. If it really truly is a family situation, deal with it in private.
In-house.
So he bothered me when he continued to air his son's dirty laundry, really just to regain his standing.
But I do want to just throw it out there. If his son had never made it a public issue, he would not have had to do that crowd control. I'm just throwing it out there. But John and then Sam.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I liked the apology video that Kirk Franklin gave after his son released the video. Because
do you think he should have apologized?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, because his son didn't give proper context. He just basically released a video of his father screaming and cursing and said, "Oh, hey, I have a terrible father, guys." Like, he didn't leave much context to it. So I can understand why Kirk wanted to tell his side of the story and clarify it. And what I loved is how he basically admitted that he's human, that he has a toxic relationship with his son, and that there's obviously a lot of anger involved. I just like the humanity of it because, coming from a Christian family myself, my parents, I mean, they were very uptight about, cursing and certain secular images in the media. I mean, you couldn't even really say shut up or stupid around the house. So I think one of the reasons why I left Christianity, why I disassociated myself from the religion, is that there was just this unrealistic, perfect standard that I felt like you had to display for yourself as a Christian. And to see, Kirk Franklin, a very well-known Christian, saying, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm going to curse out my son. I'm going to have these angry moments. I'm going to do what a lot of other non-religious secular people do. I thought it was very relieving to see that because, it can be argued that, Christianity can be very judgmental.
So, go ahead.
Well, I just have like a super quick question.
Wait, because okay, I got your question. Politically revoked, and I'm not trying to shade you.
Thank you.
A few things I want to say. For one, you can't say for certain that someone was abused as a child because as a parent,
that's
as
exactly
adult,
what I was about to say. So
these
just
two
because
people,
he went off on his adult
because
son,
my mama
that
curses my
necessarily
ass
mean
the hell out. My mama will curse me and my brother the hell out, but she's never other than a spanking. I wouldn't consider myself abused. But also the other comment I want to point out is you asked why we're defending the abuser. And I just want you to think a little bit because there's another situation with a certain politician right now who you're very defensive of in relationship to women. So I'm just saying, when we talk about these things, let's be consistent. Sam and then Mo, right? Mo and then Georgia, something like that.
It don't matter.
Sam.
Yes. I mean, I can really only speak to this You know, my son is young. He's 5. And I also, you know, whatever. But yeah, I grew up in a super abusive household, very, very abused. But I had the privilege of cutting out the entire family, building my own, and starting fresh with, you know, my son, and he'll never be hit or whatever. But, you know, he's only 5. I don't know what it's going to be like when he's 30, but I do know that if someone's in my family and I love them and I'm still speaking with them, I could never make them feel that way, even with my language. But that's also me, and I come from a completely different life than Kirk Franklin. So, but that's just my take on the whole, like, you know, hitting your kids and stuff like that. Like, yeah, the last thing I would want is to create another person to go through, you know, pain in that way.
It is true, Mo. Right. Yeah, I'm gonna let Mo go. It is true, though. When you talk about abuse, I'm not saying that abuse is only physical abuse. There's a whole. Actually, a friend of mine hit me up last night and was like, "We should do a show about abuse." And I was like, "I don't think there's an argument there," but apparently I was wrong. So that will be on the agenda. I'm gonna put it on there right now. Mo.
Okay, so here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to do the whole game of oppression Olympics. Sexual harassment, that's a whole nother category where you're dealing with adults in an office setting where it should be very professional. And when things go in a matter of being unprofessional, yeah, there's going to be consequences. It's not a case of a criminal case, so there's a lower level of actual proof that needs to be given. Child abuse is a criminal crime. And if someone is being hurt where there's bruises, or if there is spats of even mental dealing with verbal abuse, that's something completely, you know, that is criminal, and that person can be charged. So there is a higher level of threshold for proof. So those are two different things that they really shouldn't be put within the same conversation. It's really apples and oranges. So that's number one. Number two, going back to what I was saying, with the culture that we have as African Americans, our mode of parenting is going to be a little bit different because there's a different level of pressure with raising African American children, because again, they do not get the same grace as their white counterparts as far as doing something wrong or being flippant when they're speaking to authority figures, because they're being viewed as, oh, you're a threat, and I'm going to show you, you know, where you put you in your place. Where it can be up to a dish. We've had there's statistics where they found African American children are being placed on in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and discipline at a much higher level than their white counterparts. So, and, you know, all the way up to cases like with George Floyd, where he was basically down on the ground with a cop's knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. There's a lack of grace when it comes to this dark skin. So, yes, parents are going to be a little bit more aggressive in order to try to teach that child that, hey, you don't have the same level of grace that your white friends got. So I'm going to be a little more rough with my speech. I'm going to be a little bit more rough with my discipline. Is it right? Is it wrong? Who's to say? You know, child is okay. What you got to say now? If you hit your child, you're hanging with abuse. Not necessarily, because if I got spanked, it didn't happen right then. It could have been later on that evening, or the following day, or at the end of the week. Hey, these are the things that you did.
If I did something right before school and had to wait until it was over.
Right.
Ooh, that's exactly the worst.
I did it on the way out.
Think about it all day.
Our mama said, so I said, so I'm going to get a whooping now. She made me wait, go to school,
exactly.
Go sit up, man. Yeah. She thought about that.
The discipline is not always out of anger. Now, when it crosses the line, when it's done out of anger and you're seeing bruises on that child, okay, yeah, we might need to have a conversation on how to rear your child, because it's taking it a little bit too far, honey. And you know, fortunately, there's programs to assist these parents now. Because I mean, hell, back in the day, children were considered children. They were considered young adults from the age of like 6. So it evolves as a society. So I think we're getting a little distracted when we're trying to automatically assume that Kirk Franklin was a child abuser, because we can't really necessarily say that, because they had such a toxic relationship. And I pray that they're able to actually work something out. I hate that his son felt that he needs to bring it to the public, but hey, that's his choice to do. But I wish that it is his family. But I really wish that he had put what he said to add more nuance, because all we got is because all we got is Kirk Franklin cussing, and I hate to say it, but TikTok has made a lot of videos with that, and it is hilarious. So I don't want to bring
Well, his son clearly had an agenda when he posted that, when he made it public, to make his father look like an ass.
He knew,
to say, So he's
not perfect. Everybody, look, my dad's not perfect. But the crazy part about it was the black people's response.
Don't talk about Kirk Franklin.
We're talking about Kirk, and I think like at first, and I was open to like knowing what it was, and when I saw the video, I was just like, like if I was to give my mama that same energy, and I'm not gonna lie, me and my mom have had some conversations. Me and my dad not so much, but I don't really talk to him that much. So love the guy, but we just don't talk like my mom and me talk every day, right? So we've had some up and down as adults, like you don't get along all the time, and my mom has definitely got with me and read my ass for filth. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's kind of like when you engage in a conversation like that, especially when it's a two-way conversation, you can't get mad if the energy you give is the energy you receive.
100%. I mean,
but okay, go ahead.
I mean, I can only speak for me. I mean, in the black culture, that's like a common thing. I was raised by my grandmother, and she didn't play. So her hand, I mean, I have huge hands, but her hands were even bigger than mine. And I can count on one hand how many times I had to feel her wrath, because I was the youngest one and I watched my brother catch it all. And I was like, I'm not doing that. But what I was being raised to be talked at, I was never talked to. I'm telling you to do something. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm telling you to do this. Don't talk back and all that other stuff. So now I have my son who's 6, and then I have my stepkids who are older, 19, 20, 27, I believe, and one in his 30s. So what I give all my kids the opportunity to do is to speak their mind. I want to hear your opinions. I want you to talk to me because I really want to know what's going on. But what I'm not going to let you do, I don't care how old you are, is disrespect me. Disrespect is just not going to be tolerated. If we want to have a conversation about you not agreeing with me, that's perfectly fine. But you're not going to disrespect me because I'm the parent. And in essence, however old you are, you're still the child. So I think that, like you said, we needed to hear the opposite end of that conversation and what led, to put it in context, to what led to that. So, I mean, I don't believe he owed anybody an apology. He did it, of course, for reasons that he saw fit to put it out there to say he apologized, but he didn't have to apologize. That's family stuff that should have been kept in the family.
I don't think he destroyed his relationship irreversibly.
Georgia, and then Joe, and then we're gonna move on. Go ahead, Georgia.
Well,
quickly.
First of all, I'll go on that really quickly, Mo. That you can have arguments within your household, but once you put it out there, your business, your personal family business out there, to hurt that person, that's called betrayal. And let me tell you, I have been betrayed by my daughter before, and it's one of the worst hurts a parent can feel. And also because that's your child. You, if a friend betrayed me, okay, we ain't talking no more. But when your child betrays you, that's hard, because you can't just tell them that it's gone somewhere. But I was asking, are we basing this solely on the fact that he was an abusive father because he cursed at his 33-year-old son?
Or there's nowhere near enough evidence.
No. Or is it known that they have had a toxic relationship, child on up through adulthood? Is it proven?
Kirk Franklin himself is the one who put that label on it. He said that they have had, I don't know if he said toxic or problematic, but in his apology video, he said that they have always had a rocky relationship. He's the one that said that. And so the assumption, and then he also said that he's been in therapy since he was 12. So the assumption is that their relationship's always been rocky. And a lot of people who know the situation say it has to do with, him being the first child of the first marriage and all these other things like that. And I think the assumption is that if he was verbally abusive, that he also could have, and that's an assumption. We have no evidence to say anything about that. So that's just an assumption that someone watching made. And
okay, I was just curious. Y'all know I stay up under a rock, so I didn't know, when we were younger, like, did he have any, crazy things come out, like when we were kids, when he was first, doing, his first little gospel song with the hip hop in the background. Like, I didn't know if something happened all the way back then. So
maybe that was
Joe.
Maybe that's what
wait, Mo, because we gotta move. Joe.
I think my point is, I think maybe I'm the only one who had a bad experience with it, but like, I grew up in the same type of household. And it was horrible. And I don't want to repeat what I've seen. And so I think I can agree. I don't think that Black people were not being prepared for living in a war zone. I think war zones are abusive, and that a child raised in a place that's that dangerous and that harsh is problematic. And so I think it's fine to say that that's what we were doing. I think it's also fine to say that that is not what we were actually aiming for. And so I think all of my going back to it is that, like, it didn't work on me. Like, I was bad. And so my parents' goal of spanking me wasn't sufficient at reaching me.
I disagree. Because I see you now, Joe.
Whoa!
I'm saying this
as my parents spanking.
No, only reason I'm saying I disagree is because you also have to look at, they're not just raising you to be a mindful child. They're trying to groom you into being a good adult. And I don't know, I wasn't there. I'm just talking about what I see in you. Yes. Something that they did produced like a really like insightful, conscious, compassionate individual. So, and I'm not sure, I don't know if it was all of them or not, but some of the things that we were instilled because of the methods probably didn't. I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and she's like, yes, sometimes you can get the same result a different way. So could they have gotten this Joe a different way? Sure. But you also like, it's like understanding why they did what they did is important so that we can try to find out how to do it differently without causing the same harm. But I do think it is a balance between what you're saying and what Mo was saying about the fact that we do have to, and even white parents have to start, like, you have to think about the world you're setting your child up to live in on the off chance that you're not here for whatever reason. And so I do think it is something to think about. One more comment and then we're going to move on. Hold on, because we have to move on. We have to move on. Okay, so it's 9-8. So I got one more comment, one more topic. So either we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the Vatican, or we're going to talk about Candace and Cardi B.
I don't know.
Hey, I'm always down for a good talk about WAP, honey. Come on.
Let's talk about Candace and Cardi B. All right, so Candace and Cardi B. Cardi B basically and Megan Thee Stallion performed at the Grammys. And they performed at the Grammys, and their performance was lit. There was some twerking. There was this scene. There was this little minute at the end where they kind of like intertwined their legs, and then they did this little flip thing. A little like
Look at him trying to not say it.
No, because it wasn't scissoring. It was something else.
So it
was. Do you know what scissoring is, sir?
Let's not even go, because I'm not going to say what I was about to say. So essentially, people were like, oh my God, so the conversation got brought up again about, oh my God, Cardi B is not a role model for children. And of course the conversation kept going, why are you expecting Cardi B to raise your kids? Like, what kind of parenting is this? But that's not even, we're not even going to go into that. We can talk about it if you want to. But then Candace Owens had the nerve and the gall to do this thing that I can't stand. She once again decides to attack Cardi B. Granted, she got a new show coming out, so we know why. This is my issue with her doing that. It's like, look, this is why black conservatives have a hard time. Not because of all of them, because of people like her who make it a point to be that black girl who attacks other black people in the name of conservatives.
Not the red light.
Right. So this is my issue. It's like I have black conservatives in my family, a specific black conservative, but that black conservative would never deny like race or these kind of things like that. And it sucks because there are people. I think it's cool for black people to have different political ideologies. I don't have a problem with that. But when you have black people who get a platform like Candace Owens has and uses it literally to tear down other black people in the black community in white spaces. She doesn't go to BET. She doesn't go to HBCUs and give these speeches. She goes to white spaces and talk shit about the community she claims to care about, right? So this bothers me. And so when she decided to go after Cardi B again, she started it. Cardi B read her for filth, of course, because like, what do you think you're going to get? And now she wants to sue Cardi B because Cardi B posted a tweet that Candace Owens had posted, something about her and her brother and her husband having a threesome and her not being allowed to partake. And then Candace Owens like, oh, that was fake. And then Cardi B was like, if it was fake, it came from your account and it's been on the blogs for months. I just went and found it. And she's like, oh, that's defamation of character. Now I'm going to sue you. So I want to talk about that situation. I kind of want to know how we feel. Yeah, of course. I want to know how we feel about, for one, the idea that what Cardi B and Megan did, was it? Do we? I think it's once again an attack on women's sexuality. That's just how I feel.
Was it beautiful? Well, yes.
Well, it was. It doesn't matter if it was beautiful. They're artists, and they're selling music, and the music was about. Do you remember Sir Mix-a-Lot? Literally, when he came out with Baby Back Got Back years ago, there was literally a massive ass on stage, a whole fake ass, and nobody blinked an eye. So to me,
there was.
But it wasn't like it is. My point is this: that was 20 years ago, and we're talking about Lil' Kim done put out albums, Foxy Brown done put out albums, Trick Daddy, Luke, and the Two Live Crew. They
had their own content.
That's a joke from a movie. They had a whole album. Their whole thing was about pop that, So my point is to say, like, that's why I feel like it's an attack on women's sexuality. I don't think it's actually about being vulgar at all.
As the old lady on the panel, I guess my question is, how do I say this? What was really like the benefit to that type of performance? I mean, listen, I don't want to see. I don't want to see. I'm not interested in that.
Okay.
I'm just not putting it mildly. Right. But I'm just saying, what was the benefit of all the gyration, of all of the nakedness, or whatever it was? Whatever they did, I didn't see all of it.
I want to answer, Martin. So I want to say two things really quick. So one thing.
I'm going to have to watch it because I haven't seen it.
So one thing, there's two things I want to say right now. One is, as a Grammys watcher, I only watched a few performances, the performances I wanted to watch. And then Harry Styles, he offends me, so I didn't watch his performance because he offends me. I feel like he, appropriates gay culture and he gay baits. So I don't give him my money and my time. That's the right you have as a consumer. You know what I'm saying? So the other part of it is this. And I'm not saying that this is what Cardi B and Megan were doing. What I'm talking about is the origins of twerking. Goes back to a dance, the Mapaku dance or something like. I'm saying that wrong. It's an African dance that actually was a religious dance, and it was about liberation and connecting you to God. Right? Western civilization has turned that into something gross and sexual and all this other kind of stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's not what I'm saying. Twerking is totally different now. We get what it is, but I'm saying like. We take these things and we give them these horrible pictures, especially like this idea of this woman getting on stage and just owning her sexuality. If it was a male rapper surrounded by women twerking and doing the same thing, it would not have gotten a response. The problem was that the people sang the lyrics, the people delivering the song, it was about them being fine with living in that. Do I think it's necessary? Absolutely. Because I think we need to normalize women being allowed to be sexual without us telling that story and without us being the captains of their sexuality and their bodies. So I absolutely think it's necessary.
I gotta disagree. Sorry, Derry, I gotta disagree on this one.
Of course, because I said it. If somebody else had said it.
It's not because you said it. I feel like with the conversation that you're having, if you were talking about Jermaine Dupri and Snoop Dogg and other rappers that have made sexually explicit content with their music, because they've made those type of comments like, oh, it's boring, they're just trying to sell sex. That point that you're making, absolutely. when you're talking about the Uncle Luke's, the Sir Mix-a-Lots, they had controversy when they came out there on stage with that. Hell, Uncle Luke had a whole suit in court where it went all the way to the Supreme Court because his music was banned. That's why he had that song called "Banned in the USA," because there was actual local law enforcement in Florida that was made it illegal for him to sell his music. So it's just a simple fact of being in a puritanical society. They don't like seeing that type of stuff. And
but you're talking about 3 seconds of Cardi B and Megan versus a whole concert album. You're talking about the last 3 seconds of their performance.
But on the added caveat, let's face it, we really shouldn't be talking about Candace Owens because we know Candace Owens is a fake grifter and she's just trying to get home 15 seconds of fame because her show coming out. That's the only reason why she even opened her mouth. She don't really care about that. Let's not forget, she said racism doesn't exist, but the NAACP helped her get a settlement with the local school that she was going to because of their racist activities.
Absolutely.
So she is a
only
grifter,
when it benefits.
and the reason. Right, and the only reason why you see her on those Caucasian or mainstream outlets is because that's where the money resides. It's a grift. And I put that on there and had a little lamp.
In the word. Isn't the word Caucasian? Is it Caucasian or Caucasian?
I think that's an accent thing.
My issue is that men don't go through the same thing.
Hold up, Georgia. And then we're gonna go to our main topic, Georgia.
Okay.
So I mean, it's Candy. I guess my issue is that when men do it, they're just doing something wrong. Oh, that was bad. But when we do it, it's automatically you're a whore, you're a slut. You do all this like those connotations are tied to men. You're not calling him a hoe because I mean, Moneybag Yo said it. He said he wants some for it first because he don't even want to know what it's like. Come on now, and it wasn't even like that was horrible. Like I really PG'd that out. I mean that in itself, that phrase just men talk just as nasty as women, but don't nobody say that they're being nasty or that they're whores and sluts. So if I want to do the same thing, don't call me a whore or a slut. Call me the same thing you would call him.
Kind of brings it full circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning about this idea that when men do these sexual things, it is always attributed to it's because her. It's never you're a hoe. It's like, no, the women did it for me. So that's interesting. Okay, so we're going to go to our main topic tonight, which is criminal justice reform. But let us pause for a really short ad break, and we'll see you on the other side.
I'm excited to be in a show with them finally.
Oh, wow. It has been a while. For Color Girls was the last show we were all. That was the first show. 10 years ago.
Yes.
Oh, no. Don't delete that out.
That was pre-Whoa Nelly Media, but it was, in fact, a Duryea Rashad production.
Yes.
So there you go.
First time we did it.
I know.
Babies.
We were babies. So we'll really see how much we've grown. That'd be great. Yeah, I love it.
So here we are. So excited. Great.
I see them standing in the street, probably wishing that we could meet, but I just stare and frown, and still the world goes round and hear them cry, but I don't move away. I guess I'll save it for another day. I see a brother, strong and full of heart, and he's meant to go far, but he's scared of driving in his car, 'cause he might get put over.
That was the debut single from ACA, and their song's called Fix It. It's really awesome. I love black rockers. Go ahead and support them at ACA Music. And the other ad was for Flirting with Destiny. Our GoFundMe is open right now. We are almost at $2,000, and we need $5,000. So please help us. You can donate by going to GoFundMe.com/flirting. GoFundMe.com/F/flirting-W-Destiny. And you can donate there. We are trying to film May, June. We had our first pre-production meeting this weekend. We're having another one next weekend. It's going awesome. And I'm super excited to get that content out to you. It'll be our very first self-produced anything written by yours truly, and we've got.
Can I get a cameo?
If you can come down there when we film, sure.
Well, just let me know, because I
know you might went through. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Me out, buddy.
So I want to talk about the criminal justice system. I want to talk about the criminal justice system for a few reasons. My mother always told me to be wary of the criminal justice system. I had some people in my family be to jail. My uncle was always in and out of jail, but I had always attributed it just because he was a dick. But he was a dick. But it's crazy because having my mother say this to me, I'd never imagined that I was the most well behaved person in my group of friends. And I never would have guessed that I was going to be the one. And we always talk about that, like, we didn't think it'd be you, And then, it is pervasive. Like, once you're in there, it is so hard to get on. Like, I'm on probation right now, and I've been on probation since 2017. Ooh. And it is really different. Because it's like, one of my probations is like, you can't drink. So it's just so many restrictions. There's so many restrictions, and there's so many little ways that you can get back in. My uncle ended up going back to jail because he got a traffic ticket. He got a traffic ticket. And yes, once you're on probation, anytime you encounter the law enforcement, you run the risk of going back to jail. Depending on, your PO, the courts, they're going to look at your record and say, oh, traffic ticket, because your previous record was so bad. Even though you're fine, that's enough, and you're going back to jail. So all those kind of things. So I think it's really important to have this conversation, especially when you consider the history of the criminal justice system, the history of the prison system, the idea of these for-profit prisons, the idea of these stories that you hear about these judges taking money to send minority children to jails. And these are things you can look up. If you don't believe me, they're things you can look up. When you talk about what happens inside of the jails, when you talk about what happens in the court systems, I've discussed on this show before this idea that they say 1 in 7 judges have a history or a background in civil rights law or criminal defense. So 6 in 7 come from a prosecutorial background. So 6 out of 7 judges sitting on the bench were former prosecutors. So the way that they're going to look at a case is going to be a little different than the way a criminal defense lawyer or a civil rights attorney is going to look. We've had one civil rights attorney be on the, I'm probably saying this wrong, but I think the last civil rights attorney to sit on the Supreme Court was Thurgood Marshall. Mm-hmm. And that was 30 years ago. So that's crazy. The people who are deciding whether and I'm not saying anything about them being biased or not, but my point is the fact that of those 9 people over the last 30 years, only 1 has been a civil rights attorney. So I think it's important for us to talk about this. I want people to just kind of talk about the ills of the criminal justice system, or where you think it works, because that is a part of it too. Because the idea of abolishing the criminal justice system, I've heard it. I don't know if it's feasible because of shit like what happened yesterday. So I feel like there is a conversation to be had there about how to go forth. And I guess we'll start with Mo.
Okay, so the bigger question is, when you say does it work? Well, it depends on who's asking, because for those private prisons, those private firms that handle probation, you're damn right it's working good for them. Those cities where they used to have coal or whatever manufacturing used to be the thing back in the day, and now they have prisons in their city where the majority of the citizens in that city is basically working for that jail or prison, is making money. Yeah, it's working for them. Unfortunately, it's not working for people that are poor, and or not. Well, let's just say people of color, because how is it statistically that the U.S. has approximately 330 million people in this country, which is about 5% of the global population. However, they have 25% of the global prisoners in.
It's 50%.
It's 25. It's 25. But it's still staggering, because we're only 5% of the population of the world, and we got a fourth of all the prisoners. And it's like America loves to talk about, oh, that country's a dictatorship. They're locking up all their citizens. Well, hello, we're locking up 25% of the world. So come on, like we're very hypocritical, and let's just keep it 100. Prison is not for rehabilitation. It is for profit. It is about making money. Even down to the local jails. If you didn't pay your ticket, guess what? You're going to jail. And even if you're able to make that bail money to get out of jail, you're going to stay that extra day long enough for that way that local county can count you as a jail a person in jail. So that way they get money from the state. It's all about the money. I'm done.
What?
Do I have a call-in hotline? What do you want? Why do you ask, Mr. or Mrs.? I believe it's a Mr. I can't tell the picture. 1 to 100. I think it's interesting but because I think it is that way, but I feel like rehabilitation is possible. And I think that's where the criminal justice system needs to shift. But I think it starts way before we get to prison. Way before we get to prison. To me, it starts with over-policing. That's the part. So I want to start there. What are the ways? Because we understand that, like, crime is about proximity. It's also about socioeconomic class and all this other kind of stuff. So how do you feasibly attack or deal with over-policing in a way that is still safe? Like, can you draw police out of high crime areas? Like, with the history that we have, is that a feasible thing to do? Like, what is the solution?
No, it's not feasible. It's a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword.
It's economic redevelopment, right?
I mean, police are supposed to uphold the laws. So if they have laws that are made, that as a cop you have to abide by, it's the laws as well. They used to be throwing us in jail for under an ounce of weed. But what is he going to do? Is he going to not arrest this person with marijuana on him? No matter if he's white, black, Asian, Hispanic cop. Even though in his heart it's probably very ethically wrong. But if I don't do what the law says and what my job says, I lose my pension from my family. I'm going to lose my job. It's a lot. So I'm not saying that cops are not to blame for a lot of violence, but I'm saying as far as putting people in jail, I'm not talking necessarily the violence toward a specific nationality or race, but I think it's that once we change some of these laws, you can't arrest somebody for certain things. They get misdemeanors. They don't have to go to jail for 6 months and then do probation because they have a little bit of weed on them. They got into a fight, too loud in the neighborhood.
A really good start, Georgia. Like, when I think about this, like, I agree with Duryea that it starts with the police because that's why we have a criminal justice system, right? That's kind of where it starts. And for me, the problem with the police not doing their job is so deep. I'm one of those people. They all fucking suck. Like, even if you're not a racist and you don't suck, you still work for people that you're in the wrong job if you're a good person. I think.
Yeah.
And then
you're gonna be forced. You're gonna feel like you're forced to do those things because what you pledged to.
Yeah, and then I think the criminal justice system works the same way. And for me, it's like, all I can do is listen because I only know as much about it as the next person. But it just seems like it's so deep and problematic. It's like it's overwhelming to think about it sometimes, and like overwhelming to even start. Where do you start? Like, how do you fix the police?
It's like it has roots everywhere.
And
I think fixing police is a hard game, right? Like, I think I don't know if I feel like Caprina was about to go here, so there's a part of it that, like, we have a scenario on our hands where people have lived in extreme cyclical poverty for long periods of time. That's gonna be real. There's gonna be people who bear the scars of that lived life, and so I think on a certain degree we have that to deal with as a society because that's where we are. So, and I still am convinced that the vast majority of people that we are thinking of as in prison, even for crimes that have been committed, are coming from a place where it's a shortage of other options. So that's where I think it's still about economic development. I think there's a reality that may it be a reflection of like the actual like disparity in wealth and poverty in this country being as great as it is. Then when you add on the layer of racialized poverty, you end up with a group of people who just have no opportunity. And so I think we have to create a meaningful option for people to be able to work, to provide for their families, to live a life such that they would choose not to participate in criminal activity as the only option left in a society where they've been marginalized to the extent we have. I don't think we can fix it with police. I think we got to get options in the hands of people who wouldn't want to be in a situation where that's their only choice in the first place. And then at the same time, take into account that we've had people who had to live this life for as long as they have, and that's the first world they've known. And that, I think, is a reality that we can live out of, we can get through. But the truth of the matter is that that's a scar that we have on multiple generations, and it won't just stop the day we decide to like have better police.
But here's the thing about it.
Right.
I'll get you right after me, Marjorie. Here's the thing about it. You have to realize this is a system and it's cyclical. All of this stuff is cyclical. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't know this, if I get arrested for a charge today, right, and go to court and then get acquitted, dismissed, whatever of that charge, do you know the next time a police officer pulls me over, that charge is still there. They see the charges, right? So the charge, it doesn't matter what you're convicted of, and in that cop's eyes, they're gonna look at you as that you perpetrated that crime. They're not gonna think that another officer falsely arrested you. They're gonna believe the other officer, whether you did it or not, whether you got a charge of it or not. You have to pay money to get that expunged, right? So my point is that's part of the system too. So you're pulled over, you got these charges right here, so I'm already looking at you a different way. It does. I'm not saying that there is one solution. What I'm saying is that part of the solution, the reason I say it starts with over policing is, and I do think it also starts with economic change as well. But when I'm talking about just because you do have to eliminate the crime, but I'm also thinking about just the culture of how police treat somebody, juvenile offenders. Like we talked about before, how they'll treat a 16-year-old who's in crime versus a grown man who does it, who's a different race and a second socioeconomic class. There's a culture of people who are taught that black people are genetically predisposed to violence. On the show I was watching the other day, a guy was asked why black people are, more likely to commit violent crimes. He didn't talk about the fact that those statistics are based off of convictions. That's the only way you can get convictions. You say black people are more likely to commit violent crimes, they're only coming from convictions. So you have to think about the route it takes. Convictions, like the bias in the courtrooms, the fact that white men versus black counterparts and black women versus white counterparts are going to be more likely to be charged and sentenced higher. Take all that into consideration and over policing. But a lot of people don't even get that far. They're just like, it's because black people are unruly. It's because and so it is in that culture, a lot of the people who have that thought process end up wearing a badge. So I think it is about over policing. I think it's also about the way that they're trained, like the empathy training, the counseling, those kind of things that need to be engaged, just like you said before, Joe, so that when they are arresting a person, they see a person and not a problem, right? Just like this mass murderer yesterday, the empathy that he gets. If that's the case, if we're going to have a system built on rehabilitation, that needs to be the case. But a lot of police officers, it's all about force and demanding this type of respect. Do you know a law was passed in Kentucky where now you can get arrested for verbally insulting a police officer?
Yep.
It's a misdemeanor now.
I mean, we can agree, though. We can agree police has got problems. I know people who've only gone to jail for resisting arrest. Literally all they did was resist arrest. So I think we're in agreement there. I think when you set up the scenario in which we have, so Chicago is the best example for me, right? Chicago is a place that has reached a point where violence has been so normalized that people who want to escape the cyclical violence, not even just the criminal justice system, but cyclical violence has gotten to the point where I do believe there is need for policing to enable the people who live there who are just trying to get out of the situation to be fairly and equitably policed so they have a chance to get going, right? But I'm coupling that with economic redevelopment. That we have a scenario in which we where when we think about policing and we think about like what do we do with police, so often I feel like it's a matter of like, but there'll still be crime, and the answer is that so frequently crime is a reflection of inequity, and it's not a reflection of people just being out here thinking all I want to do is commit crimes.
Right.
And so I think that's where my piece was going, because I
I
don't
agree. Yeah,
Margie
and I agree with what you say about crime being in some ways societal, socioeconomic, and all of that stuff. But I really truly just believe that there are just some people that have developed, for whatever reason, a criminal mindset. And whereas my first instinct is to get up, take a shower, brush my teeth, and go to work, go sit in that office and hustle legitimately so I can feed my family, take care of my responsibilities. There are other people that get up, brush their teeth, and their mindset is to go do something that's criminal as a way to, to tend to their needs and take care of their family. And so I think in some ways I'm just so old school. I mean, like I said, raised by my grandmother and my mother, where there was just certain lines, there was just certain things that you did and certain things that you just did not do. So I guess all those good cussing outs that I got was the thing that probably made me realize there is a path for you to become a productive, contributing member of society. And listen, my mother graduated from high school and was a domestic worker. My grandmother, same thing, domestic work. In fact, they worked in the same white people's houses. That was what their job was. That was their only job, and I was still able to graduate high school, to go to college, get a degree, do all kinds of wonderful things based on the example of hard work. I don't care if you're a dishwasher, make sure those dishes are spotless. I don't care if you're a janitor, make sure that floor is clean enough to be eaten off of. But I don't know where the disconnect is with people that have not adopted that mindset. And I don't know, again, it could clearly be because of the economics and they're having to adapt to what their surroundings were and have to find a way to make it.
I mean, it's a culmination of all of those things when you really look at it, depending on where you come from. I was raised in New York, in the Bronx, in the hood. I lived in a brick building, and that was my sanctuary. The bums on the corner were our friends. They looked out for us. The street hustlers made sure that we were good when I was growing up in the 70s. So, I mean, my Uncle Whit was in and out of prison and jail all of his life. So I think it all depends. And because I was raised in that type of environment, I know what this side looks like, and then I know what the other side looks like. So it's basically, well, for me, in my opinion, it's based on choice. You have choices. The easy choice was to go ahead and hustle like the rest of my friends, or what my uncle did to make a quick dollar. That was the easy road because that was the way it was. The hard road was to stay focused and go to school and make the choice to do something different. I chose to do something different. I see it every day. I work in a maximum security prison here in North Carolina, in a male prison. I see it every single day. From 19-year-olds to 80-something-year-old grown-ass men in there crying about their circumstance. And I work in the death row unit. So everybody in there at some point is going to die by the hands of the state. And they cry and they whine about their circumstance when you made the choice to stab her 25 times or run in there and shoot whoever 15 times. But you made those choices agreeably based on their circumstance to make it for their life, to feed their family, to do what they felt they needed to be done. However, you made the choice to do those things, and clearly it was the wrong choice. And I tell these inmates all the time, I joke with them, I play around with them, I tell them all the time, if you could only use your powers for good, you wouldn't be here. Like, some of these guys are very intelligent. Some of them are great writers. Some of these dudes are great artists. I mean, the shit they come up with is amazing. But only if you could use your powers for good, you would not be in this position where you are a 35-year-old man on death row. Your whole life is gone because you decided you needed a quick $500 and you killed an old lady. So it's really hard. It's really disheartening because the majority of them, of course, are black guys, you know, and you're like, your whole life is gone. But it's a culmination of things that put them in there. One of them being choice.
Before I go to Sam, I just wanted to piggyback on that, and I agree. I mean, when the first time I was in, when I went to actual federal prison, it was crazy to me because there were dudes in there much younger than me. I was in the gym and I was watching these dudes play basketball, and I was so flabbergasted at the talent that this dude had. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, man, you literally could be in the NBA. Watching him, and it kind of hit me right then and there, looking at some of the, and that's why I think it's a multitude of these things. It is choice. And I like that Caprina said that it is, of course, you do understand that the choice had to do with opportunity at an end too. So it's about a mixing of all of these things, and it's really difficult. And when you're talking about fixing the criminal justice system, I don't think that problems, and I've said this before in this conversation, I don't think that this is a thing you can attack at one angle. I do think it's economics, and I'm glad that Joe brought that up, and I do think that it's policing. But I think that so often when people talk about this topic, they talk about one aspect of it, as if that one aspect changing will fix the whole puzzle.
Absolutely not.
Sam, and then I think Mo wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, I guess something I was thinking is how do we, there's people on death row that have committed these terrible crimes, you know, but Eddie and I just had a friend 4 years ago or something. He's on the way to our apartment, one of our black friends got pulled over because his windshield was cracked, and he was on probation too, you know, and I was just thinking I just couldn't even wrap my mind around that. And then he got in trouble for something else but the initial thing was he got pulled over because he had a cracked windshield. You know, how do we fix problems like that? And you hear these things all the time. My mom lives in Wilmington, and she just sent me this link of a police recording where it's just the most racist shit you've ever heard. Well, no, it's not. But, you know, they're just talking about, you know, getting them off the street. And that's why they do this. And then it's if that's where this is all starting, if that's the cops, how do we trust the criminal justice system? I have a family member, an uncle, who's done terrible stuff, you know, in and out of jail, this and that. He's in this really fancy rehabilitation center, you know, and I bet there's people that have done less than him, black people, that are in way worse situations than he is. And it's that's the angle that I just can't, you know, I don't know where you attack that from, because it seems so broken.
Mo?
Okay. I think you can attack it first of all from a level of catching them young, with outreach. For example, I think if I remember the figures correctly, for example, in Chicago, their budget for their police is about $93 million annually. However, the amount that they give out for youth outreach programs, like after school programs and things of that nature, is less than 450,000. So clearly, the focus has not been on prevention; it's been on lock them up. And clearly, we see that that's not really solving the problem of preventing these violent crimes. And furthermore, we talk about justice reform. Unfortunately, as long as there's a coin to be made by it, it's not going to happen. Any type of reform is going to happen because it's too much money that's involved in it.
But didn't Biden just try to pass something to eliminate prison for private prisons? If I'm correct,
he signed. Okay, so Joe Biden signed an executive order stating that the federal government will not engage in private prisons anymore. However, that doesn't affect the state and local levels that still have private prisons.
Right.
Again, private prisons companies, they're on the New York Stock Exchange. So
Yes,
there's
they
people
are.
literally selling and trading stock of companies that incarcerate people, particularly even though disproportionately black people, because black people, even though they do crime on the same level as their white counterparts, as well as engage in drug activity as much as their white counterparts, they're pulled over 6 times more often than their white counterparts. So we've developed a culture where it's affecting minorities on a much higher basis. So what I hope and pray that within my lifetime, it at the very least that part of the pie can be adjusted somehow. But as far as criminal justice reform, where they take money out of it, I don't really see that happening. I probably see healthcare getting the money getting taken out of that first before I see criminal justice.
Uh,
So.
I have a question, which is ridiculous and true though. One, compared to, I feel like you have genuinely unique perspective into this, and so I'm curious about your thoughts on criminal justice reform or on private prisons, and what we can do with the reform. Because I just feel like last time you talked, I felt like wisdom happened, so I just want to go back. That's my question. Can you talk?
Can you talk?
Wow. Thanks, Joe. I guess what I
No,
say
no,
is
you, no,
better.
you're brilliant. You inspired me to ask 2 questions. I thought she would offer
Well,
I'm
well,
teasing.
well, Mo is
I'm
very
teasing.
correct. I mean, the even the state level prison, strictly there, it's only for profit. I've worked at this particular prison since 2012. There's no programs within that prison for these inmates to rehabilitate them in any way, shape, or form. Like none. It's strictly for profit. Everything, every decision, everything that gets made, every policy that gets put into place, it's strictly for the state to get money for their budget. It's I mean, they cut programs left and right so that they could utilize that money to benefit them, so that it goes back into their pockets. It benefits the inmates very little. There's no program. The best thing they have right now because of COVID is they get to watch a movie every day. So nothing benefits them. There's no programs that they could utilize unless they have, for lack of a better term, a pen pal who will sponsor them to get into a educational program, so to speak, or to get funds so that they can have money on their books or canteen to purchase educational books that they can do if they have money. But there's nothing that is given to them by the state at all, which is very sad because we are told that prison is set to be some type of rehabilitation. So reform. You go there to do your time, to come out to be a better person. No, not at all.
I think a big part of it is the requirements. Like I know that like some places, if the court requires you to do stuff, you have to do it. Like the court says you have to do this program, that program. But that a lot of the times is your attorney asking for that program,
advocating for you.
Yes, it's your attorney doing it now. And granted, and I'm 2 ways about it, because I do think that it is important that you as an individual decide you want to make that change. But when you're talking about people who've whether they're predisposed to it or whether the mentality has been learned, because what Margie said earlier, I do think some people do wake up with that on their mindset, but I also think that mindset is a learned one, right? So now when you're talking about unlearning something like that, that is difficult. And I think that prisons, like, you have 24 hours in the day, and I'm going to say like let's say 16 of them, you're not in your cell, right? Probably less than that. But 4 of those hours could be attributed to a required block of something that has to do with conflict resolution. Because there's prisons out there with those type of programs, but a lot of them aren't required. A lot of them are optional, which means that if you want to, you can go to jail, You can watch TV, you can play spades, you can order off commissary, you can do all hookups and stuff like that, and then you can leave when your time is done. So all you've really done is, maybe exercise a little bit, but all you've really done is sit back until because you're not even been put in the mindset. And you have to realize you're sitting around a whole bunch of other people who are in the same position. And granted, there's a lot of amazing people in it. They'll drop that wisdom to you. Because I had a lot of people tell me, like, talking to me 5 seconds, you don't belong here, this and the third. But I kept going back. I kept getting in trouble, right? It wasn't until but if those programs were more readily available and just there, I do think it would be easier for somebody to make that decision that they don't want that for their life, because they have to feel like it's possible. Especially like for me,
absolutely.
I was blessed to be around. I didn't grow up in a situation where that was an issue for me, so I've seen it and I know it's possible. But some people coming from certain situations, they're like, this is the only life that I can live. This is the life that I have to live. And,
absolutely.
And that has to be made as if it was a viable option to people.
Well, that also goes back to catching them at an early age in the juvenile stages, because nobody wants to go to prison for the rest of their life. Right? Nobody wants to be in and out of the prison system. Nobody wants to be labeled that individual. You just can't get right? Nobody wants to do that. So if you're able to grasp them early enough where you're like, okay, these are your options. So you have those attorneys who will advocate for you and say, look, there's this program out here, there's this program. How about we get them into this so that they don't have, the alternative is not going to prison at 18, 19 and spending 12 years of your life there. How about we get them into this program to get them focused so we could avoid that? But if you have a private attorney, right? Because you can afford that. When you have a court-appointed attorney who doesn't care, basically, and says, hey, just plead out and you'll do 2-3 years and then you'll be done. But now you have a felony on your record. You come out as let's just say 25-year-old who can't vote, who can't get federal loans to go to college if that's what you want to do, because now you pleaded out to a crime of something so petty as having some weed, and now you're pretty much screwed. So it's a really jacked up system. So if you catch them early, they have a better possibility of not ending up as a 45-year-old man who has already spent 20 years in prison.
I want to pass it to Margie, but I also want to remind people, like, it's also interesting, like, especially if you're not someone who knows about a lot of this stuff, like, there's a lot of notions that aren't right, that people are misperceived or misconceived, whatever, the mis-something-ceived notions that go along with the criminal justice system. One is your right to have an attorney. You have a right to have an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be assigned to you. Doesn't mean you won't have to pay for that attorney later. If you are convicted of whatever crime you're charged of, you will pay that attorney. Period.
Part of the restitution. Yep.
Yes. So at the end of the day, when they tell you to take a plea, they're also telling you to give them some money. And that's a lot of things people don't know. Of course, they're going to be more likely to edge you to take because there's two different types of court-appointed attorneys. There's court-appointed attorneys that do their work pro bono, meaning they have their own private practice and they literally do that pro bono. And then there's some attorneys that are literally working for the public defender, right? Now, my understanding is a lot of times attorneys this is just what I learned. They will ask you to plead. They'll tell you to plead. I've had it happen to me. And then, after the fact, I get my little deal and it's like, what is this number right here? Oh, that's your court fees. God damn, I gotta pay $3,000-$5,000 for the court fees. And then, I've honestly had an attorney continue my case, not knowing that it was driving up my court fees. Every time we would go, we're gonna continue it for this little thing, and I didn't know anything about the system. And then when I got the thing, I'm like, all these court appearances cost me money, especially because I took a plea. So these are things that are part of the system too that people don't know and people aren't thinking about. And especially when you don't know anything about the system, you have this attorney telling you.
And then they don't tell you either.
Yeah. They have this attorney telling you, oh, it looks bad. I mean, we can fight it if you want to, but you're looking at this, so you might want to say, and then what are you going to do? You're like a deer in headlights. You're literally like a deer in headlights.
Because the alternative is if you don't plead, if you don't plead, you're going to spend 20 years in prison. But if you plead, you might only get 6 months. Mm-hmm. So who wants to spend 20 versus 6 months? So anyone's going to say, okay, you know what? I'll plead it out, get it done, and get it over with. And then you're screwed because they don't tell you the little caveats at the end of the contract that once you plead, and it's like you said, it's a continuation in this fee and a continuation, and you're thinking, oh, well, I'm good. I'm not in jail.
And that's why I wanted to pass. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
That's why I wanted to pass it to Margie, because Margie is an attorney. And I just kind of want to get from your, and you do a lot of different law. You do family law, but you've also done criminal law, I believe. And so I just kind of want to get your take on everything we're talking about.
Right. I'm a criminal defense attorney as well. And I also have cases that I represent, people civilly, but it's people who've had some crime committed to them. For example, if someone is killed by a drunk driver, I might represent the family in the civil litigation. So one of the things that I learned only as an attorney is, you have to protect your record, your criminal record. First off, if you can avoid getting one, don't get one. But if you do get one, you better know what's on it, and you better make sure that every offense that you have that has been dismissed or that you have had a non-conviction for, get them expunged. Because as Duryea said, if you're driving and you get pulled over and you were charged with a crime, but you weren't convicted, you're still going to show that charge being on there. And someone may be predisposed to thinking negative things about you because you've been charged. A charge is not the same thing as a conviction. Another thing I always tell people, I go to court for a traffic ticket. When my children got traffic tickets, I sent someone to court on their behalf to argue that. You know why? Because you don't want to just say, oh, it's just a ticket, I'm going to pay it. And guess what? When you pay it, that's a conviction. That's an admission of guilt. A simple possession of marijuana in my jurisdiction is a misdemeanor. It's a $900 ticket. I paid the ticket. I'm not worried about it. You should be, because now you got a drug conviction. So things like that people aren't aware of. When you take these deals, it's like, well, I got charged with such and such, but I took the deal. They gave me time served. I was in jail for 1 day. But guess what? You have a conviction for that particular crime. So I think it is just so important when you have situations where you're charged with a crime, figure it out. Find a way to hire a private attorney. Yeah, public defenders are good. Some people think that public defenders aren't even attorneys. They really are.
They are. Yeah. That's why I say it's hit or miss, because some public defenders, they will fight for your ass. I've had like one or two that were like, nope, I like to win. That's how that was their energy. Yeah. They were like, nah, I like to win, so we ain't pleading because I think we can beat this. And that's what I'm saying. It's hit or miss, though. That's awesome. It's hit or miss, though, because what sucks is you get my first attorney, like I think my second one was like that, right? And then you think that's what you're gonna get, and that's not what you're gonna get. Sometimes you're gonna get those ones that just want you to plead so they can get that money.
Now, one last thing I'm going to say, this is a personal experience of mine. I have a cousin that I grew up with. He was raised in the same house with my mom and my grandmother. In fact, his mom was my aunt. And, he was a great guy.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
She'll come back. She'll be back.
Okay.
I know Joe has to head out, and we're going to go to our final thoughts anyway soon. So... Can you stay for final thoughts? You got to do it right now, Joe.
Okay, I'll do mine quick if I can do it.
Go ahead.
I think my thought, my final thought was, I think I've still approved.
I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm back.
I want to hear it.
I went to another room in the house. It's like, what happened? Yeah. So anyway, my cousin that I grew up in the house with, I'm moving all around because I'm trying to get away from my grandbaby.
Wait. Joe was giving his final thoughts because
No. Joe said he wants to hear this.
I want to hear about her.
Okay. So great guy in high school, went in the military. Got on drugs really bad. Ended up getting kicked out of the military. Spent several years in Leavenworth. Came back home to my same grandmother's house and continued to use drugs. He went from smoking weed in high school, stealing people's band money to support his weed habit, to being a full-fledged crack addict. He smoked crack for maybe 20-something years of his life. Every time he got caught with a little tiny morsel of crack, oh, you don't have to worry about it. Don't go to jail.
Give us that hot tea.
He watching. He's on the.
Wait.
Okay, here I am.
Okay, you said. Don't worry about it. Don't go to jail.
Yeah. You know, just taking all these plea deals, as everybody said. I'm going back downstairs. Stephen help. His criminal record was as long as my arm. By the time he finally, got caught selling a couple of rocks of crack. So naturally, his issue was he was a drug addict. But he had all these little tiny convictions, a couple of years in jail here, a couple of years in jail there. When he finally pled guilty, because it was the 3 strikes and you're out, he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. A crackhead. Okay? Wow. That's what his issue was. He had these little public defenders that said, it's okay, Henry. I got it worked out. You don't have to spend no time in jail. It's okay, Henry. Pay a fine. But little did they know that in 2008, when he got caught with a whole pocket full of rocks at the car wash where he was selling them, that all those convictions came back to haunt him. And all of that added up and made him look like a kingpin who was a crackhead. So he has been in jail since 2008. He gets out of jail next year. Now, I'm going to tell you what, he's been a model citizen in prison, hadn't had a bit of trouble. In fact, he's spending the last 3 years of his incarceration at a local jail. He's like the cook there. Everybody loves him. They let him call home all the time. So, he certainly has been rehabilitated, but it didn't even have to be like that for him. And, now that I am a lawyer, I could see all the things that went wrong with his case, but I couldn't help him at that time. My family didn't have the resources to help him. We probably never hired a private attorney. It probably always was a public defender. A young person that was like, hey, listen, I got 1,001 cases. I can plead this one out good. And Henry, you ain't get no jail time. You don't even have to come back up here. They're not going to charge. They're going to just dismiss the case or whatever. But when your record in 2008 shows 50 convictions for bullshit and you're really going to prison, that's the problem. So, that is a part of my perspective as a criminal defense attorney. I believe in mitigation. I believe in, trying to find programs that can help offenders. I'm the attorney that says, okay, I'm going to send you over here to this program. You're going to be drug tested every week for 8 weeks. I'm going to send all these clean drug tests to the solicitor to try to see if we can get your charge reduced. So that's, and I like to win too. And that's my final word, because my battery is going dead and my grandbaby's got to get a bath. So I'm going to jump off of this.
Okay.
I'm going to jump off. But thank y'all.
Joe, go ahead.
My final thoughts fast. I think I've done a bunch of these now, and I think I've learned the most that I've taken away from one of these podcasts as I have all of them. And so I think my takeaway was to just stay curious. I think I felt like I knew answers to the criminal justice system that I still feel like some of them are true. But I take away from this night just like reawoken to the depth of the difficulty. I think that's paying for your public defenders. What is pushed me over the edge? Just like the depth of the pay to play system. I think just surprised me and shocked me. And so that's my final thought. Is just like stay curious, y'all, because there's more to learn every time. Yes.
The only way you won't pay for that attorney is if you take that to court, which means you risk the maximum time.
20 years. It's 20 years or 6 months, and you got to pay. It's just like.
And then you can take it to court, still lose, have to pay that attorney, and get the maximum time.
And you're done.
So thank you, Joe. We're actually going to keep going with the final thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Georgia. You're muted.
Georgia.
Sorry. So it was a very interesting topic for me. I love listening to everybody's different, like their opinions and their views. I feel like it's just this issue is just so entangled in one another, from the cops to the law, from the law to the justice system. It's crazy. And so though I love the conversation, I still don't know what I could possibly take away to even try to figure it out. To me, it's just such a complex situation. It's not going to be fixed overnight. It's going to take a lot of great brains and good people with great hearts to fix this, because it's a race thing. It's a political thing. It's an economical thing. Like it hits everybody. You know, you don't have to be a convicted felon. You don't have to be black to be a convicted felon. You can be white. You can be Asian. It affects everybody. But then you do have this big group of people who are in the lower economy. They don't have the resource, like Mo was saying, things that help them to keep them out of school, keep them out of trouble. Like I can tell around the neighborhood when the kids get in the most trouble because they ain't got nothing to do. Their parents not home. So it's just everybody has to work to fix this, not just the police, not just the law. It starts with us as well, being advocates for people who we just got to start somewhere. It's just, to me, like I have never left this show just flabbergasted. This is the first time I'm just like, I have no words. I don't know.
Excellent. Thank you, Georgia. That was Georgia. You can find her IG at SweetGeorgiaBrown92. And then let's go.
No, 924. 924.
Oh, I'm
What's
sorry,
the
sis,
4?
At SweetGeorgiaBrown924. I don't know where your 4 is. Somebody backstage. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna tease her when we got the air. Okay.
Do that.
Now let's go to Sam.
Yeah, I feel like this is only my second one, but I feel very, I don't know, like overwhelmed a bit drained. But maybe in a healthy way. I was lucky enough to sit on a panel with mostly, people of color and listening to, where you guys are coming from. And I feel like the root of almost everything we talked about was racism. So I don't think I have much to add to anything that we say except just to listen and then do what I can as a panelist to talk a little bit. But thank you guys for, having me on here with you. It was really cool.
Thank you for being here. You can find Sam at SammyJoe913, and of course she'll be back. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, usually Mo goes last. Do you want to go last again, Mo?
Of course I do.
Of course you do. Okay, so we'll go with Caprina.
Well, first I'd like to say thank you, Daria, for inviting me in for this evening's discussion.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem. I was in the midst of chaos all day, so this was great to sit still.
Right.
But it was all the conversations on each of the topics was very enlightening. And like Georgia said, there is no one and done. There's no right answer. There's actually, you can't even really begin to see where to start. In my opinion, when it comes to dealing with the justice system, when it comes like the public, you have to deal with the children. Like you have to reach these kids at an early age in order to prevent them from getting into any more serious crimes or trouble. I think if you're able to reach the kids on an early age, you can instill in them certain things that they probably wouldn't have gotten at home or in their community, where they see the possibilities could be very different than I guess they're used to, because people do what they're used to. People rob cars because they're used to doing that. Their friends did it. People sell drugs because that's the environment that they were in. People do certain things because that's what they're used to. If you take them from out of that environment and show them something different, you could travel, you could read some books. It doesn't have to be what you're used to. I think it begins to teach them a different way. So for me, reaching kids at an early age makes a difference. It made a difference for me because I had a huge chips on my shoulders when I was a teenager. And if it wasn't for one person reeling me in and getting me focused and making me read books and starting martial arts at an early age, that really made me focus. And I wasn't so angry. I wasn't so upset, which prevented me from doing other things, to focus. So I think those things matter if you're able to reach somebody like that. So that's just my final thoughts. But thank you again for having me up here. It was great to meet all of you guys.
Dropping them nuggets. Okay, Mo, And I see your comments in the usually we do this, we start doing this thing where we have the panel, the viewers drop their comments as well and their final thoughts. So we're gonna throw those up on the screen. We didn't, because we kind of rushed final thoughts today, but go ahead, Mo. Anyone else who wants to put a final thought in the comments, put it on the comments and we'll throw it up on the screen. Just put final thought with a colon and put what you took away from the conversation. Go ahead, Mo.
Come on, shameless plug. All right, Destiny. Okay. I might watch it tomorrow. Hey, matter of fact, send me a link. I might want to be on there. So, my final thoughts. First of all, I want to thank everybody, even you, Duryea, for having me on the show. That was shady, but it was. Anyway, I think the main thing that we didn't talk about, you're right, Georgia, we didn't put any solutions, so I'll go ahead and give two. Number one, you got to vote. I know it sounds cliche, but it just boils down to you have to vote. The district attorneys in your county, that is a position that is voted upon. The local judges in your county, they are elected as well as the district attorney. So these people that are within the system, they are elected officials. So you have a say based on your vote on how they interact with the community. Secondly, they are unfortunately was already been discussed about kids being that it starts with the children. You're absolutely right. And also the powers that be already knows this. That's why they have certain tests where they test children at the 3rd grade, so that way they can determine how many schools I'm going to put up as opposed to how many prisons we're going to build. So we already have these tools. We as a people have to finally come together and say enough. We're going to go out and vote regardless of whatever voter suppression laws you're going to put in place. And we're going to keep these people accountable, kind of like that Willie Nelson song. We'll vote. And if we don't like what you're doing, we'll boot you out and vote somebody else in. We have to keep our people accountable. And also, finally,
here we go.
After you sponsor a prisoner, or if you decide to sponsor us here at Whoa Nelly Media, we're floating with Destiny. Make sure you give your donations any amount. No amount is too small. After you do all that, make sure you check out my Cash App. No, I take all amounts. I do not discriminate. It could be Bitcoin. I will accept it. It could be stocks. I will accept it because that is also on Cash App. And that Cash App is $ Mo Smith Pro. That is MoeSmithP as in Paul RO. Can I get an amen from the congregation? All right.
Amen.
Thank you. Love y'all.
Amen.
Glory. Thank you.
Excellent.
Glory.
That was Mo Smith Pro, who is a continual returning panelist. Always on Talk It Out.
Yes,
you can also catch Mo. You can also catch them on Sip and Kiki, which is our current events, pop culture reality show, Music Digest, that is coming out in about probably 3 weeks. We're going to have our first episode. We're going to be reviewing reality shows, Real Housewives. We're going to be talking about everything that's happening, just having a good old, just ratchet ass time, all right?
Nice.
So, thanks everybody for being here. I know we had a few panelists that had to go because we got short on time, but I really thank everybody for being here. For a fact, this show is made what it is because of the conversations that are had, whether you're on screen or in the viewers or in the chat. We are all part of this conversation, so I really also appreciate the people for being so vocal in the chat and sharing your thoughts. And, some of these final thoughts are beautiful. I see, final thought. I see this one, and I appreciate that. I love you so much. And I'm so glad that we met, especially you too, Caprina. And I just think that it's awesome. Important. I know. I think it's important that, it is beautiful for me. I'm just going to say it's a little off subject. It's important that you find people that are what you want to be. It was so impactful for me to be around all these LGBTQ married people with families. And it really changed my ideas and views on what is possible for me in my future as well. So and they're so supportive. So it's really beautiful. But I want y'all to take a moment to remember to go over to our YouTube channel, like the video, give us a comment, tell us what you thought of the episode. Also, click that notification bell, getting us more views and more subscriptions on our YouTube channel will help us eventually generate some funds, which will go straight back into the business. Also, if you want to be a panelist, please email us admin@wonellymedia.com. We've got future panels coming up. Next week's panel is still open. We're going to be talking about racial stereotypes, and we've got some other really cool topics. Also, if you have a suggestion or what topic you think we should do, we would love that as well. So please leave that in the chat here, or send that to us at admin@wonellymedia.com. Once again, my final thoughts is that, when you're having these type of conversations, if you're not a little bit shocked or uncomfortable, then you're probably not having a meaningful conversation. Like, it's, having Sam say, like it was just in Georgia, and Joe just saying that this was taken aback. It's because there's things that we don't know that are going on because we're not in those situations. And there's only so much that research can do. But finding out like what's at the root of these problems means having these kind of really meaningful interactions. And so I appreciate everybody for that. But I also think that it's important for us to start going out of our way and doing what we can do to fix these problems. And that is a multitude of things. Like, the idea of community needs to like be more ingrained in us. The idea that, it's easy to judge from afar, like, oh, that's a problem that the black community has, or that the kids have, the poor people. But instead, if we get our minds to understand that, literally just having this conversation right here might have inspired somebody to go talk to their kid. You know what I'm saying? And it's all part of this bigger whole. And as far as the criminal justice system, I think after tonight, I really take away from it that there are a lot more angles that problem has to be addressed at. It's not just it is police and policy and all that stuff is very, very important, but it is also about a cultural mind shift in the way that we handle people. So, and the way that we have preconceived notions about people. And education is everything. Even if you don't think you'll ever end up in jail, or your kid will ever end up in jail, educate them on what to do if they're arrested. Period. Because I never would have thought that I'd be in jail. And if I had known a little bit more, I would have been more equipped to make better decisions for myself so that I wouldn't have so many charges. And that's an important thing. Like, I know it's a tough conversation to have, but I would suggest talking to your children at an appropriate age about if you're ever arrested, not just when they're actually shackling your hands up, but then, okay, once you're at the courthouse, once you're at the judges, these are the decisions you need to make. Call this person. Have a contingency plan, because it could be anything as simple. It could be as big as like a few rocks in your pocket, or it could be a cracked tail light. You don't know. So that would be my suggestion to everyone. And that's my final thought. I love you guys all so much, and I want to thank you all for joining us for another edition of Talk It Out, a place where people of opposing views can get together and have a healthy and productive dialogue in a respectful way, keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Have a great night.